One day, a nice girl named Arya thought about the fact the villagers needed workers. She claimed to her girlfriends that they needed a man, and they needed all for the sake of their own village. But another girl named Milia believed that in this country, the villages only had girls, and they could not handle the hard work alone. Milia realized that Arya hated men, but for the sake of the village, she was worth enduring. Then a girl named Kiri wondered where they could find these men. Kiri was just sure that no one would come to such a backwater. Then a girl named Lynn suggested finding these men since they needed them so much. But a worried Arya reminded the one that he was deep in the mountains, so it wouldn't be so easy to find the men. Suddenly, the girls heard some noise coming from outside. Then, without thinking, Arya ran out of the cabin and looked up into the sky. In the sky, the girls saw something unimaginable, like a meteorite that was falling somewhere nearby. At this time, all the girls had already run out of the cabin and began to observe the unknown object. Milia assumed that this glowing thing could be a shooting star. Arya, on the other hand, thought it was a man flying. A few months ago, an angry bear walked through the forest and frightened everyone with its growl. The knights who were clearly not ready to fight the bear came upon it. The bear wasted no time and attacked the uninvited knights. The knights just didn't understand where the bear was coming from in this forest. They tried to pick up their comrades who had stumbled and help them escape, but the legs of those had absolutely no hold on them. And when the bear was about ready to wipe the knights off the face of the earth, help came. A certain lad, who had dealt with the bear in a flash, showed his silhouette through the dust. He was glad that he had quickly dealt with the monster, for the bear could summon others with its roar. The savior was a boy named Rain Wolfield. The terrified knights began to berate the boy because he was late and blamed him for almost getting them killed. Then the commander declared that they would retreat and leave the rest to Rain. But Rain stated that it was too late to retreat. As it turned out, the team was already surrounded. The bear had managed to summon many other monsters with its roar. The knights hid behind the trees and did not know what to do. They weren't even going to fight and only hoped for Rain. Rain asked the knights not to worry, for he didn't care at all about the number of monsters. When the monsters roared again, Rain used accelerated thinking. And while he was waiting for something, the knights were already saying goodbye to their lives. Rain, on the other hand, realized that there were more monsters than usual today. He even speculated that there might be more than 100 of them. Rain then used a skill such as scouting, allowing him to realize how many monsters were nearby. Next, the kid started using trajectory detection to destroy all the monsters in a blink of an eye. Rain then proceeded to activate magic energy and finally canceled accelerated thinking when the monster's paws were already in front of his face. Finally, Rain swung his hand and the bears' heads began to fall to the ground. With the force of the wind blade, the monsters died one by one and there was nothing they could do. In the end, only the chopped-up parts of the monsters were left on the ground. The knights were dumbfounded at how quickly Rain had defeated so many monsters. It even seemed to them that Rain was a demon. But in general, they didn't care, because now the monsters were already dead and should have turned to stone. And when another monster turned to stone, it was in the hands of one of the knights, who was very delighted. After all, with such a stone, one could live happily ever after for the rest of his life. But he was quickly reminded that he could not take the stone for himself. At this time, Rain would look around and make sure no one else was around. The knights at this time continued to collect the stones left behind by the monsters. They were glad that with Rain out hunting was just a walk. Rain, on the other hand, had been living in the anti-demon sorcerer family for 15 years. In truth, he was reborn, and was greatly surprised. After all, Rain was an ordinary office worker, but suddenly woke up in the body of a child. The last thing he remembered was drinking alone at home. Rain didn't even know if he died of alcohol or something else. After all, he was only 33 years old. But that didn't matter now. After all, Rain was now an anti-demon sorcerer. Anti-demon aristocrats live near monster habitats, such as the demon forest or monster valleys. They are obliged to hunt demons for the safety of the country. However, they are aristocrats in name only. Rain has never been treated as nobility. And when Rain returned to the chamber where they were already waiting for him, the guy was praised for his good work. Waiting for him with his feet on the table was the steward of the Borderland army of the Holy Kingdom. He admitted that this time Rain had surprised everyone, because he had killed so many monsters. He wanted to reward him for that. He pointed to the pouch on the table and added that it was his reward. But Rain could see that there were not enough coins in the pouch, which angered him. The steward, on the other hand, saw no problem with this. He reminded Rain that he existed only by the grace of their king. The steward argued that Rain was already too rich, so he should not complain. Rain did not object and only added that he would be in town if anyone needed him. Rain went to town thinking that he would like to get more. Speaking of which, it had been a long time since the guy had been in town. It had been over a month. Accidentally stumbling upon the cottage of an acquaintance, Rain wondered if he was doing well. Without thinking long, the guy decided to visit his friend. It was a man named Zur, whom Rain hadn't seen in a long time. Zur was happy to see Rain and started asking the guy how he was doing, since he hadn't been home in a long time. To which Rain sadly replied that he was doing everything alone again. This caused Zur to take a deep breath. Zur only asked Rain to just tell him if he needed work. After all, at this rate, Rain would drive himself to his grave. It was Rain who was always slaying monsters on missions, and the cowardly knights were still amused afterward. Rain wondered if Zur had anything new from the books. And when Zur showed Rain the books on magic, Rain's eyes lit up. The boy marveled at how amazing and rare these books were. Zur had specially saved these books for Rain, for he knew that Rain would like them, for Rain had always been attracted to new knowledge of magic. But what could be done? Rain has always strived for perfection. After all, there is still so much unexplored in ancient magic. Rain took the books and began to read them directly from Zaire. He noticed that the language of magic was very similar to the programming language from his world, so he could easily understand it. Rain was simply fascinated by books about star magic and creation magic. Zur, on the other hand, was curious about Rain's research on curses. Zur had just heard of demonic aristocrats not even living to the age of 40. That alarmed him. Such a statement made Rain fall silent, but Zur asked him to say something. Then Rain smiled and asked Zur not to worry. But Zur argued that he couldn't help but worry. After all, Rain is already 15, and he won't even notice when he turns 40. Zur didn't understand why Rain was taking the curse so lightly. Rain hesitated for a moment. As Zur had said, anti-demon sorcerers couldn't live beyond 40 years because of the curse. And it's true. Then Rain decided to reassure Zur that there was progress in researching the curse. However, if there was any information left from the sorcerer's ancestors, he would certainly feel better. Rain also noticed that Zur was a little sad today. Therefore, the boy decided to ask Zur why he was like this. Zur confessed that he would soon have to leave the country. He told Rain that he had decided to go to his grandchildren, so he was closing the store and throwing away his books. But Rain was glad that he had bought all his books from Zur. Even though it would take more than one day to transport all those books, Rain still thought that ancient magic was a very useful thing. Stretching his hand over one of the books, Rain used the vault spell, and the book quickly vaporized. So, a vault is a spell of star magic. With it, Rain can transport anything he touches into another space. And if he forgets it's already there, he can use something else. List. It allows Rain to see what items he has placed in the vault. Everything was in place. Rain found this magic very useful, being able to see what lay in the vault. The kid had no idea what he would do without this magic. This magic was used by ancestors from an ancient civilization, so Rain thought that it was not a good idea to abuse this power in public. In the end, Rain decided to quickly finish moving the books. When the kid was already walking freely away from the city, he thought about the fact that although he had mastered so many ancient spells, he could not deal with his own curse. In that case, as soon as Rain turned 40, he would die. But he certainly didn't want such an end for himself, so he looked for ways to avoid such a fate. By the way, Rain just remembered that he had to remember to pick vegetables from the vegetable garden today. And when the guy was already standing in front of his house, the picture he observed horrified him. A carriage with horses was standing right in the middle of Rain's vegetable garden. And the horses were eating vegetables from the vegetable garden of the greenhouse. An indignant Rain rode up to the horses and ordered them to stop eating his vegetables, because the animals had no idea how hard it was to grow them. But the horses clearly didn't care. At that moment, someone rudely thrust a sword into the ground in front of Rain's nose. "Who the hell are you people?" Rain was outraged, but the knight, resting on the sword stuck in the ground, said that at this moment, Count Runenford was in this place, so outsiders were not allowed to enter. Then Rain grudgingly declared that this was his house, and that the horses of those had eaten his crops, and therefore they would have to make restitution. But the knight declared that he was merely accompanying the count. At this point, the uninvited count appeared and freely left the house of Rain. The count, however, said with a smile on his face, calling Rihanna his son, that they should leave their talk for later. After all, Rain had been summoned by His Majesty, so he should hurry up and get ready. Rain was dumbfounded to hear that he was called his son. That means that he is his father, even though this is the first time Rain has seen him. But Rain still didn't understand why he had come to see him. The count understood that Rain was greatly surprised, but asked him to discuss it later, for Rain's fiancée, of whom Rain himself knew nothing yet, was waiting for him in the capital. "It is the princess of this country, Mistress Emilia." Hearing this, Rain was dumbfounded twice, but still went with his father to the capital. 2 months later, Rain was ready to win the heart of the princess. The count asked Rain to be more serious and focused, but the boy was clearly nervous. The count claimed that since anti-demon sorcerers don't live long, they had agreed that instead of hunting demons, Rain would marry the princess of this country. Rain, however, had already heard these words from his mother. The count, however, added that if Rain failed, a groom would be chosen from the sons of other families similar in age to Rain. Rain was puzzled upon hearing this. The count looked at Rain's face and realized that he knew nothing about it. Then he nervously declared that if Rain could marry the princess, they would become part of the royal family. The count argued that it was imperative that Rain do so, and all responsibility lay with him. In the end, the count asked the silent Rain if he was listening to him, to which the latter smiled and replied that he was listening to him. The count was already excited that he would soon become more than just a count. He asked Rain to thank his mother for this, that he was born into this world. In the end, the earl said that he believed in Rain. But these words saddened the boy even more. He knew that his father did not believe in him at all and was only doing it all for himself. When Rain's mother was slowly dying from the curse, Rain's father didn't even think of acting like a father. And the reason why he remembered that he is a father is obvious. The count craved the power that the royal family has, which is why he so convinced Rain to marry the princess. Rain realized that he had everything perfectly fine in his life until his father dragged him into his games. And Rain thought the princess was ugly. But when he saw her, the boy's eyes lit up. The princess looked at Rain the first time he looked at her. She seemed too cute and a real beauty to him. But when the time for the ceremony was almost upon them, the princess apologized guiltily to Rain for some reason. He took the girl's hand, but did not understand why she apologized. Finally, the beginning of the ceremony was announced. His Majesty began to make a speech. Suddenly, the door to the hall opened wide. A certain kid entered the hall and, kneeling before His Majesty, first apologized and then asked him to reconsider his decision. The king, sitting on his throne and scratching his long beard, asked who the man was. To which the insolent lad replied that his name was Cheklis's. He is the eldest son of the Duke of Grandheit. This whole situation seemed very suspicious to Rain. The strangest thing was that no one said anything. Even if this guy is the Duke's son, interrupting the royal family's engagement is unacceptable. Although Rain didn't want to do it himself, he realized that it was not the right thing to do. At some point, Rain also noticed that all the guests had very strange faces for some reason. Cheklis's at this time said, addressing His Majesty, that the princess had the right to marry for love. At this point, the princess snapped. She let go of Rain's hand and stepped away from him. That's when Rain realized everything. This had all been planned long ago. And everyone present, except Rain and the count, were of course aware of what was going to happen here. At this time, the king had already listened to Cheklis's and understood what he meant. He then decided to turn to Count Runenford and ask him what he thought about it. The earl, however, even flinched when His Majesty addressed him. With trembling hands, the earl said that an engagement between witches was a tradition handed down from the time of the first kings, it was a sacred custom and should not be broken. After listening to the count, the king decided to turn to Rain and ask him what he thought about the matter. Rain got down on one knee in front of the king and said that the nobles fighting demons have long been dead and true. 5 years ago, Rain had assumed that role. Rain thought it was best to break his engagement right now, because there might be bigger problems later. From Rain's words, the king realized that he was now 15 years old. Then he asked him if he had been fighting demons since he was 10 years old. To which Rain replied that the latter was absolutely right. It was a common thing for Rain to do. But here the guests began to whisper. They thought that the boy was talking complete nonsense. After all, even elite soldiers couldn't always survive in the demonic forest. The guests refused to believe that a kid like Rain could kill demons. The king noticed that the guests couldn't believe Rain's words and asked the boy to tell them how he dealt with demons. Rain, on the other hand, didn't understand why the others would want to know that. But he still decided to share some information. While demonstrating at the same time, Rain said that he was using a spell called Wind Blade. These words caused the guests to scoff. They started laughing and pointing their fingers at Rain. Even the king chuckled when he heard these words. After all, the Wind Blade spell is considered to be very weak to kill demons, and it is also possessed by absolutely everyone. But Rain didn't understand the guests' ridicule. He believed that if he developed this spell properly, it would become many times stronger and consume much less mana. At this point, the king declared that he had made his decision. Right now, he was canceling the treaty. These words surprised Rain for some reason. The king, however, claimed that he had long wanted to get rid of this tradition adopted by the first king. The king thought that dealing with demons with the basic magic of blades of wind was not funny even for a joke. At this time, the earl realized how bad the situation was and tried to utter something, but was too tense to do so. At this moment, the knights approached him and asked the count to remove himself. That's how it ended. It was hard. The anti-demon nobles were abolished, and the count and Rain were kicked out of the feast. The count blamed Rain for everything and kicked out of the family. In short, he abandoned Rain. So now, after his father's threatening request that he not be seen by him again, Rain is a commoner. Now, no matter what Rain says, no one cares. From this lesson, Rain has learned one thing. This world is pretty hard to live in. He lay carefree on the grass and realized that he was suddenly unemployed. The kid didn't understand how he was going to live now. After all, he would not be able to support himself with only a small vegetable garden. And in other countries there is no work to be found. Who in their right mind would hire a homeless person? These unpleasant thoughts swirled around in Rain's head. Then Rain thought about becoming an adventurer with his experience in demon slaying. Although he realized that after what had happened, he wouldn't be taken there. But suddenly, the boy had an epiphany. And Rain decided to try something new. As he got back on his feet, he decided to leave the country. He had thought about it before. However, he couldn't, because anti-demon aristocrats are forbidden to leave the country. From now on, Rain could do whatever he wanted. Then he began to think of a plan. He realized that it would be quite difficult to go on foot. Then Rain decided to try by air. For example, burst the compressed air at his feet and made a semblance of a rocket. After a while, Rain had already prepared supplies for several days. Also protected his body with strengthening magic and reduced the air resistance with wind defense magic. Now Rain was fully prepared and confident that everything would be fine. Without thinking for long, the guy decided to start the plan. In a moment, Rain was already flying high into the sky with a bullet, and even found himself for a few seconds in space. Such results the kid definitely considered a success, because he discovered a good way to move. With such a jump, he could get wherever Rain wanted to go. The only thing left to figure out was where. But when Rain started to fall, he realized that he didn't know how to break it all. Rain flew and blamed himself for not thinking that he could fall like that. But that was not what was important right now. Where was the best place for him to land? He flew through populated areas and realized that he couldn't go there. Then he should find a forest or mountains. With wind magic, Rain decided to change the trajectory, but he realized that he couldn't do that. because he was falling too fast. Rain understood that in such a situation, the main characters gather all the will in their fists, but he didn't want to die at all. Finally, Rain landed somewhere in the forest. It was the one that Aria and her girlfriends saw when it first flew. So the girls felt it necessary to go into the forest and check what had fallen to them. Aria wanted to go alone, but the others decided not to let her go alone because it was too dangerous. Finally, one of the girls, sitting in a tree, found what they had been looking for so hard. Aria was overjoyed at this news, so she asked her where to go. To which she was answered that they should go to the demonic forest, where Rain was. As the girls walked through the forest and observed the great destruction, they wondered if it was dangerous. After all, if one caused a lot of damage to the forest, the monsters might go on a rampage. Aria thought the girls were right about that and suggested that they return to the village to think about a defense plan. But suddenly, Sui called out to Aria and pointed her finger somewhere. Aria approached Sui and asked her what was wrong, to which she replied that there was someone lying over there. At this time, Rain woke up and realized that he was alive. He was only glad that he had used body reinforcement, for without it, he would have surely died. The kid's head was spinning and he couldn't get up. Did he run out of mana? At that moment, Aria came up to him and asked him if he was all right. The other girls also approached Rain and began to look at him. In the end, Kiri asked if he was even alive. Lin then decided to ask Rain directly if he was alive. The girl explained that the one would simply die if he fell asleep in the demonic forest. When Rain heard the phrase demonic forest, he immediately woke up. The kid sat up and excitedly asked where he was, to which he answered that he was in the Astra Kingdom. Then Rain asked the following: "Who are you?" Kiri explained to the lad that he came from the nearest village. Rain, on the other hand, had never heard of a kingdom like Astra. At this time, Lin was trying to ask Rain where he came from while he was hovering in his thoughts. But Rain felt threatened. He explained to the girls that they needed to run away, because the monsters would soon be here. But it was too late to run. A demonic wolf appeared on the slope. Aria was dumbfounded when she saw the monster. She didn't understand how it had gotten here so quickly. Milady shouted that they should leave quickly, because soon there would be a whole pack of demon wolves here. Rain then decided to use a reconnaissance spell. He realized that he and the girls were surrounded, and there were too many monsters. Rain realized that with his current mana level, he would only have enough to use wind blades once. He wouldn't have the strength for more than that. At this time, Aria indignantly asked Rain what he was doing and said that he had to run away. Rain then said that he would clear the way, and then they could escape. But Aria argued that Rain could not handle the monsters alone. Rain, however, not intending to be ceremonious with anyone, simply asked those to lie down on the ground if they did not want to die. The girls, of course, began to ask questions, but when Rain had already ordered everyone to lie on the ground, they obeyed unquestioningly. Finally, Rain began to cast the spell, Wind Blade, and in a moment, all the wolves in the neighborhood were defeated. Rain had to be dragged further by his legs by the girls. Kiri was delighted with Rain, even though she was dragging him to the village. After all, the guy had single-handedly defeated so many demonic wolves. Aria, on the other hand, who was dragging Rain by the other leg, added that the stranger fainted immediately afterward. But Kiri still didn't expect Aria's wish to come true. After all, she had just seen a shooting star and wished for a man. And so, the girls are already dragging the boy to their village. Aria, on the other hand, indignantly and at the same time embarrassed, stated that it was not like that. Aria argued that they needed him for the welfare of the village, and she only saw him as a laborer. But the other girls thought that Aria was doing quite well on her own, as she had indeed practiced a lot. Kiri advised her to train her brain in addition to her muscles, to which Aria indignantly asked Kiri to shut up. Milia argued that in any case, it would be nice to have such a strong guy in her village. But another question remained. Would Rain agree to it? As the girls continued to drag the guy, Kiri and Milia were whispering about something. Aria noticed it and looked at those two with disdain. Kiri only reminded Aria that first impressions are very important. Aria stammered and replied that she knew it herself. Finally, Rain woke up. The boy's first question was where he was. Then he noticed that his head hurt and grabbed his head where a compress had been applied. At that moment, Milia, Kiri, and Arya entered the room with a plate in their hands. The girls claimed to be very happy that the guy was all right, as they were very worried. Rain, on the other hand, only apologized for the inconvenience. Arya, however, could not help but express her dissatisfaction about the fact that dragging the boy to the village was incredibly difficult. But Kiri and Milia quickly brought Arya to her senses by pushing her from the elbow. And while Rain sat on the bed in bewilderment, the girls were whispering among themselves and figuring things out. In the end, Milia asked Arya to be quieter. At this time, Sui and Lin also came into the room, who were also happy that the guy had woken up. Lin first thanked the guy for saving him and asked if he was a wizard. To which Rain embarrassedly replied, sort of. Suya, on the other hand, admiringly claimed that it was the first time she had seen such strong magic. In the end, the girls allowed Rain to stay with them as long as he liked. Rain only thanked them for their kindness and confessed that he had nowhere else to go. When the girls heard this, they were even pleased and offered Rain to stay with them in their village, for there were no men at all in the village. Rain, of course, found it strange that there were no men in the village. But the girls decided to quickly change the subject, so Arya shoved a plate of food into Rain's hands, arguing that he should eat first to recover. Immediately afterward, all the girls dashed out of the room, slamming the door firmly shut. Lin and Suyi were dissatisfied with the behavior of their elders. After all, they still wanted to talk to Rain. Kiri and Milia, on the other hand, cheered at what Rain had said about having nowhere to go. The girls thought the guy was a perfect find and decided that they couldn't miss such a chance. Finally, they got the labor force. Milia, on the other hand, even decided that she would make the guy stay in the village no matter what it cost her. Arya had already envisioned the fact that in addition to defense against demons, Rain would be working in the fields. Milia, on the other hand, felt that the lad would also be able to repair houses. Kiri was happy that they could finally fix the broken fence. Lin, on the other hand, listened to the elders with misunderstanding and some judgment. But with one voice, the girls shouted that they wouldn't let Rain escape, while Rain calmly ate the food provided to him in his room. The next morning, the girls began to prepare for breakfast, careful to carry the food and not drop it. At this time, Rain had already gotten out of bed as well. He felt much better after resting and could already move normally. Looking at the rack, Rain saw his clothes that the girls had also washed. The guy was happy about that and decided to definitely thank his saviors. Already walking dressed along the corridor, Rain realized that this was the first time he was going outside since he was brought here. He wondered where the girls were now. At some point, Rain remembered how many things had happened to him. He refused to even believe it. Finally, when the guy found the girls, he saw them eating breakfast. Arya was the first thing to ask the guy if he was feeling better, and Milia wished him a good morning, while Kiri asked Lin not to slurp. Kiri then invited Rain to sit at the table with them and make himself at home. Rain did not refuse and sat next to Kiri. Lin decided to thank Rain for saving her yesterday with her mouth full of food. Kiri was angered by Lin's behavior, and hitting her on the head, the girl asked her to chew first before talking. Lin quickly swallowed her food and indignantly, tearfully asked Kiri why she was doing this to her. To which Kiri equally indignantly replied that she simply shouldn't have spoken with her mouth full. Kiri also added that Lin will not get any more rice today, which caused a great deal of indignation from the one. Rain looked at the arguing girls and only smiled sweetly with the realization that this place was quite lively, to which Milia replied to him that it was all because he was here. The girl claimed that back then they never thought that people could fall from the sky. That is why they decided to check it out. However, they were attacked by wolves and Rain saved everyone. But Rain felt that it was he who should thank the girls, for it was they who carried him to the village and cured him. At this time, Sui sat sadly over her plate. Milia noticed this and asked if she wanted more. Without waiting for an answer, Milia decided to bring Sui some more. At this time, Arya put her hands on the table menacingly and declared, addressing Rain, that they should talk after the meal. The girl claimed that she would show the boy the village as soon as he finished his breakfast. Arya also added that she and Rain have some things to do while they look around. Milia and Kiri at this time pulled smiles up to their ears and tried to be nice. Rain noticed the girl's strange behavior and asked what was the matter. To which they answered with one voice, "Nothing." After a while, Rain and Arya were already walking around the village. Rain thought this village was not bad. Arya, on the other hand, claimed that because the village was close to the demonic forest, almost all the residents had scattered to other villages. And along with them, all the men had left. Arya explained that that was why they were glad that the guy was here. Finally, Arya led Rain to where she wanted him to go. It was some kind of wasteland. The girl, however, declared that this piece of land was now Riane's, and as payment, he would have to give the girls a portion of the harvest, so he should make a good job of it. But Rain looked at the ordinary wasteland and didn't understand anything. Arya, however, was just glad that she had explained everything clearly to Rain, so she started to leave. But Rain grabbed her shoulder and asked her to wait. Arya was outraged that Rain had grabbed her so suddenly and frightened her, and Rain asked what he should do. But Arya was clearly unwilling to answer that question and flashed out of Rain's sight with the excuse that she still had things to do. Rain was in a stupor and still didn't know what to do. He decided to look at the list and was glad because he had prepared the necessary tools in advance. Then the guy wondered what he needed right now. Rain decided that first he needed to level the ground and then get some wood. And when all the tools were in place, Rain decided to get started. At this time, Kiri and Arya were sitting in their cabin talking. Kiri was outraged that Arya had left Rain alone. The girl just didn't understand what Arya was even thinking at that moment. Arya, on the other hand, thought that Rain should work off all the food and overnight lodging. But Kiri was sure that Rain couldn't handle such a task alone, and it might take too long. Arya, on the other hand, shouted that she understood it all. However, the girl wanted to use that place for fields. Kiri then decided to deal with it later and reminded Arya that they should be as friendly as possible with Rain so that he would agree to stay in the village. Kiri grabbed Arya's cheeks and argued that Arya should not immediately send him so tense, but show maximum friendliness. Kiri tried to convey to Arya that they would not get another chance like this and Rain should not be missed under any circumstances. Then Arya couldn't stand it and with tears in her eyes, raising her voice, asked what should she do. After all, Kiri knows that Arya is afraid of men. Kiri, however, asked Arya not to cry. Arya thought that she didn't do anything wrong. After all, she just showed the guy the village and just told him where he could live. Kiri decided to apologize to Arya for her insistence and admitted that she had overreacted a bit. At this time, Milya appeared. She heard the fact that Rain was alone, which she was very indignant about. The girl thought that sending Rain to such a job is unacceptable, because he could just run away. That's when it hit Arya. She realized that Milya was right and decided to test Rain. At this time, Rain was already shaking off his hands from the big job. He only needed to clean up a little bit. Rain then planned to process the wood. At that moment, Arya suddenly appeared and asked indignantly, "What is this?" Arya stared at the wood, and not believing her own words, asked if it was from the demonic forest. To which Rain replied that he decided to level the land, so he removed the extra trees. The guy thought that those trees could hardly be of any use to the girls. Arya, however, was more interested in what Rain was thinking when he cut down so many of them. Rain didn't understand Arya. After all, she had told him to make this land livable. Arya, on the other hand, was furious. She argued that Rain shouldn't have gone so overboard. Arya was confused. After all, if such damage was done to the demonic forest, the monsters would surely attack the village. Arya was already sure that they would definitely be attacked by a whole horde of monsters, so the girl decided that she should go back and warn everyone about the attack. But Rain asked Arya not to worry so much. The indignant Arya argued that he would never figure it out, so he should stop talking nonsense. Finally, exhaling, Arya ordered Rain to stay here and prepare everything for defense, and she herself would go and bring the others. And as Arya ran away, Rain wondered what he should do now. The guy started reasoning and realized that the main problem was that it was unknown where the monsters would attack from. Then the guy thought about building walls around the village. But immediately Rain realized that in that case he would not be able to repel the monster's attack. Then, all of a sudden, the guy had an epiphany. When Arya came running in and told the others that Rain had cut down the trees from the demon forest, everyone was shocked. Arya, on the other hand, apologized to the others. After all the responsibility was on her. But Lin pounded his fist on the table and declared that it wasn't Arya's fault. But the girl also didn't understand what they should all do now. Sui noticed how worried Lin was and decided to come over and support her. At this time, Milia was thinking that Rain was undoubtedly very strong, but if he suddenly failed, the village would be finished. The girls didn't understand what to do in such a case. Then Arya said that they had no choice. She suggested that they go to Rain and protect the village from the monsters together. That's what the girls did. They went to the place where Rain was supposed to be waiting for them. Arya felt that the monsters were already here. Milia, on the other hand, was worried about the number of monsters. At this moment, suddenly, Lin shouted, pointing her finger somewhere. Lin was pointing at a huge hole that appeared in front of the girls. Arya was shocked to see it, because this pit had never been there before. Then the girl assumed that this pit was created by a demon that came out of the forest. At that moment, the roar of the monsters was heard. Then the girls realized that Rain was already fighting and decided to rush to him. After a while, the girls found Rain standing over a cliff. They were surprised to see him. Rain heard the girls and turned around and asked them to be careful because it was dangerous. And Rain did and lied. On the other side of the ground, a crowd of monsters had already gathered. Kiri began to panic greatly, wondering what they should do since there was an army of monsters in front of them. Lin, who was standing next to her, told her not to worry, even though she was very scared. Rain asked the girls to wait for a while and added that he was almost finished. There was a bow in the guy's hands, but there were no arrows. The girls, seeing this, were puzzled. Rain, on the other hand, knew from pulling the string that wind arrows are very weak at long range, and the farther away the enemy is, the stronger the arrow will be. Thus, there is incredible damage, huge damage, great damage, medium damage, and weak damage. That's when Rain started to use the spell. He added a spell called Wind Blade to the arrow. Arya looked at what was happening and didn't understand what was happening. An incredibly strong wind was gathering around Rain. Finally, the arrow strung on the bow manifested, and Rain clearly tuned in to the monsters. Without thinking long, Rain released the arrow, which ended up flying towards the monsters with great speed and force. The demon fox monsters, on the other hand, had no idea about anything yet, so they fearlessly ran towards Rain. But when the arrow pierced the first wolf, Rain shouted, "Arrow of the wind, blades of wind." Immediately after that, something unimaginable began to happen on the other side. A single arrow flew from one wolf to another and slew each. The girls were delighted and dumbfounded to see such a thing. But suddenly, a magic stone flew into Lin's head. The girls recognized these stones and realized that one could live for several years with such a quantity. That's when everyone realized that these were the stones that had fallen off the demons, and Rain had actually managed to single-handedly destroy so many demons. Rain looked at his bow and realized that he had overdone it a bit, because he could have done without the bow. At this time, Arya ran up to Rain, who was standing right above the pit, and said that they had seen such a pit on the way here. The girl assumed that the monsters were still nearby. But Rain explained that he was the one who created the pits using the skill of controlling the earth. Rain argued that they would still need wood, and it would be difficult to constantly repel the monsters' attacks. That was why the guy had created a moat around the entire village. Rain claimed that this way they wouldn't have to think about where the monsters might attack from. Arya then asked what would happen if the monsters just jumped over the moat. To which Rain replied that that was why in one place he had made the moat already where the monsters would be able to jump over, and now it was enough to keep only one place to protect the village. Milia, already standing with an armful of magic stones, was very happy that the problem was solved. The girl thought that the moat would help them a lot, so she began to thank Rain for saving them again. At this time, the curious Lin was looking at the moat and its depth, while Sui stood by her side and asked her to be careful. After that, Milia also saw the wood that Rain had cut down and marveled even more. Rain explained that he had prepared more because the houses in the village needed repair. Milia also did not think that Rain had overdone the wood, for it was exactly what they needed. At this moment, someone wanted to pounce on Rain from behind. It was the happy Lin who pounced on Rain with a hug. Rain was dumbfounded by this surprise and asked her why she was suddenly like this. Lin, on the other hand, started looking at Rain's face and saying how strong he was. Rain laughed and said that he would try harder. Then the happy Lin, sitting on the guy's back, decided that she would work together with Rain. And while Lin was cuddling with Rain, a pensive Arya stood aside. She tried to understand everything that Rain had done. She realized that he was only able to create something like this by controlling the earth. But then the next question surfaced. How much power did it take for Rain to do this? Arya felt that Rain was definitely the savior of their village. Meanwhile, the guy himself was asking Lin to get off him, but she was adamantly against it. Sui, on the other hand, also wanted him to ride her. But when Lin did get off the guy, he saw a pensive Arya. So he went over and asked her what was wrong. Arya, however, only grudgingly replied that he had made a mess here. But Lin didn't think so. She stood up for Rain and said that the guy had only saved them after all. But Rain himself thought that it was all his fault anyway. The disgruntled Arya, on the other hand, said she was glad that he realized it himself. The girl claimed that this time she would forgive him, but if he did something like that again, there would be no mercy for him. Rain didn't want to fight with anyone, so he just promised to be more careful from now on. While the others were calling Arya mean and making her smile, she decided to stop talking and called Rain home. At that moment, Rain realized that he would have to stay in this village for a while. But while still standing near the cliff, Arya asked Rain what they should do with the magic stones left behind by the monsters. After all, if they were left like that, they would simply be eaten by other monsters. So Rain decided to collect the stones and take them home. Ilya was happier than the others when it came to collecting the stones. But then Lin asked the main question. How would they get to the other side? There's no bridge. But Rihanna had no problem with that. He used earth control, forcing the earth to converge, forming a kind of bridge. The girls were dumbfounded when the guy created a bridge in an instant. Lin was more delighted than the others. She realized that magic was the truest miracle. The girl then ran after Rain and asked him to teach her magic. But Rain claimed that it was too early for her to practice. The guy realized that not everyone can master magic. That's why there is a strict selection process before the training begins. Rain thought that this country was also no exception. But Lin insisted. She tearfully asked Rain to teach her magic. Yet he still firmly refused. But even that didn't stop the persistent Lin. Even in the evening, when everyone was gathered for dinner, Lin asked Rain to teach her magic and promised to do whatever he wanted. Rain explained that he wouldn't teach her magic no matter how much she asked, especially since she was unlikely to succeed. But Lin promised to try very hard. At this time, Arya and Kiri were pouring soup onto plates. Lin, on the other hand, didn't even let Rain eat. She climbed into his arms and sat down well. Even though Rain asked her to get off, Lin still continued to sit on top of him and begged him to teach her magic. Rain was also surprised that Lin could sit on a guy's lap so easily. After all, she was a girl. But Lin thought that there was nothing to be embarrassed about. After all, that guy was her brother. At some point, Kiri couldn't stand it and intervened. She grabbed the girl's face and politely asked her to let Rain eat in peace. Finally, Lin got off Rain's back. Kiri, on the other hand, apologized to the boy and added that he could eat dinner in peace. Lin, on the other hand, Kiri sent her to her room. Lin objected since she hadn't eaten yet. But Kiri did not care, because Lin was already sitting at the table and for some reason did not touch the food. Then Lin shouted at the whole house, "That's not fair." After a while, all the plates were empty. Rain was helping Kiri clean up, so she saw fit to apologize and thank him for it. But it was no problem at all for Rain. He was even more worried about Lin, who hadn't eaten at all. But Kiri thought that Lin should just think about her behavior. In that case, Rain remained calm. Kiri, on the other hand, also apologized for Lin hitting on him all day. Rain smiled and replied that it was no big deal. Kiri, on the other hand, felt that she should keep a better eye on Lin. Suddenly, Rain thought about the fact that Lin was talking strangely for a child. After all, her speech was more like a man's. So Kiri decided to tell Rain a story. She began by saying that Lin used to have an older brother. They were always together and Lin loved him very much. Then Rain inquired what happened, to which Kiri replied that the girl's brother had died during the demon attack. That's when Rain realized that he had brought up the topic for nothing. He felt embarrassed, so the guy felt the need to apologize for bringing up the topic. But Kiri claimed that everything was fine and asked him not to worry. But Kiri realized that Lin was still worried about it, and if she could use magic, she could probably save her brother. In the end, Kiri asked Rain not to worry about it and promised to talk to Lin. That's when Rain realized that Lin wanted to learn magic for the sake of protecting her loved ones, for the sake of protecting her home. In that case, Rain made up his mind. While everyone was asleep, he prepared everything he needed and considered that he might be able to do it. And the very next morning Rain gathered everyone in one room. He decided to teach the girls magic from today. Of course, Lin was the most excited. Arya, on the other hand, was clearly not happy, which Rain noticed, so he asked her why she had such a face. She replied indignantly that he was up to something strange again. But Rain tried to explain that he had not thought of anything like that. Rain admitted that he just didn't know how magic was taught in their country. Milia, on the other hand, explained that the senior sorcerers simply trained apprentices, and that was all. Milia argued that when sorcerers take in girls who are not predisposed to magic as apprentices, they usually have other goals in mind. In other cases, however, they want to adopt such girls. Those who were able to master magic are given to rich merchants or aristocrats, and they become prostitutes. Rain was quite shocked by such stories and didn't understand at all what was wrong with this country. Anyway, the guy wanted to get started as soon as possible. He handed out some kind of cards to the girls and asked them to use them. When the girls asked what the cards were, Rain explained that they were magic determiners. Lin then wondered how to use this magic qualifier. Kiri, on the other hand, was more concerned about the fact that these magic determiners were insanely expensive, but Rain thought that the price of them didn't bite that much. Suddenly, Milia said that when she put some magic on the determiner, some words appeared on it. Rain, on the other hand, was a little surprised when Milia infused magic. He hadn't even imagined that a girl could know how to do that. After all, this was what he wanted to teach them today. Milia explained that she used to do a little magic before. Then Rain explained that the definition shows which element those with a predisposition to. Rain argued that each person has an aptitude for a certain element. With the magic determinant, one could find out which element suited a person. Lin, looking at Milia, realized that she was good at light magic and decided to find out her elements. But when the girl only waved the card, nothing happened. Rain laughed at her and explained that it didn't work that way, and one must first learn to sense magical energy. Lin, on the other hand, was quite frustrated that she couldn't do it right now. Then she wondered what the determinant had to do with magic at all. Rain liked that question. He explained that magic is activated by using the body's mana to cast a spell. Therefore, it is very important to first learn to feel the magical energy. But even after these words, Lin still did not understand anything. Rain, on the other hand, said that he had prepared a determinant so that those learned how to sense mana better. The guy claimed that in learning magic, it was the most important step. It turns out that determiners have the ability to absorb magical energy. With them, the girls' training would go much faster. Lin was already seething. Rain walked over to her and stroked her head and explained that there was no need to rush her at all. And with time, she would learn everything, so that one should not worry. And while Rain explained everything to everyone, one of the girls noticed that the guy was now very similar to the teacher, which made him very confused. At this time, Kiri was already crying from not being able to do anything. The girl had already considered that the determiner was just broken. Arya also had her determiner, but for some reason she was afraid of something. After a few hours, Sui and Lin got it working. Lin had water magic and Sui had earth magic. Kiri was still fiddling with her identifier and was very nervous. Rain at this time decided to just continue their lesson. Now he wanted to show the girls the beginning spells, so he asked them to watch carefully. When Rain started to demonstrate Sui and Lin's water creation magic, the girls were shocked. Once was not enough, and the girls asked Rain to show them again. Rain, however, didn't even think that those girls would enjoy it so much. He decided to ask Sui to repeat the spell and handed her a glass. They were interrupted by Arya. She asked to start the lesson by strengthening her body. Hearing this, Rain asked the girl if he knew about magic, to which the girl replied that she knew quite a bit, but she thought it was worth practicing body strengthening to begin with. Rain thought that everything was correct, but it was better to practice elemental magic specifically. After all, without having the proper level in magic, it wouldn't be possible to use this spell. But Arya argued that everyone was capable of using this magic. Rain, on the other hand, argued that this was not entirely true. He explained that it was very rare to use magic without having abilities in this element. Then, with her head lowered, Arya asked if that meant that even with magic power, it wouldn't be possible to use strengthening. Rain explained that it would be possible to use it. However, it wouldn't be possible to develop it without possessing elemental powers, so it would be better to focus on one's element of magic. After hearing that, Arya just started to leave. Rain asked her what was wrong, but she only replied that she was going to get some fresh air. Rain looked at Arya leaving and assumed that she didn't like the way he was teaching magic. The guy decided that he should apologize to Arya and asked Sui and Lin to wait for him for a while. But then Kiri whispered in Rain's ear that he didn't do anything wrong. It's just that Arya is really grateful that he decided to teach magic. Kiri asked Rain to provide everything to her, and she advised him to study well with Lin and Sui. That's what Rain did. But Lin was still not doing well no matter how hard she tried. The water was not moving at all. But Rain asked her to take her time and looked at Sui and realized that she wasn't doing anything yet either. Sui, on the other hand, wanted to try her best if Lin succeeded. But Rain explained to her that it was not necessary to follow Lin's lead. At that moment, Kiri and Arya returned to the room. Arya approached Rain and politely asked him to teach her magic. The cunning Lin, on the other hand, declared that Arya would no longer be able to catch up with them, but the indignant Arya declared that they would still see who had to catch up. In that case, Rain decided to try again. In the evening of the same day, the girls began to prepare for dinner. Lin had been practicing all day, but she did not succeed, which was very disappointing. Arya also failed and thought that she didn't have any magic ability at all. But Rain argued that this was not true. He was sure that Arya was very capable in other elements as well, and he was also surprised at Arya's eagerness to learn the magic of the void element. The guy believed that someday the girl would learn strengthening as well. These words cheered Arya up a bit. Rain realized that Arya had an aptitude for fire magic and decided to train in kindling flames later on. Arya then wondered if this magic was useful. Then Kiri and Milia ran up to her and began to argue that they would have a much easier time with fire magic. After all, starting a fire again every time is very troublesome. In the end, Rain praised everyone, even Lin and Sui. Lin, on the other hand, was happy that they would be able to do well very soon. Sui, on the other hand, thought that it was all thanks to Rain's lessons, and without his help, it wouldn't have been possible. Kiri supported Sui. She thought the same thing. She even succeeded in using the determinant. The girl claimed that Rain was a very good teacher. Kiri admitted that there was no way she could understand it before. However, Rain explained everything very clearly. But Rain felt that he had not done anything special. Arya, on the other hand, thought that Kiri was right. Previously, Arya had also practiced with her teacher. However, she was not good at it. Before that, the girl thought that she had an element of emptiness. However, she had no idea that it wasn't true. Kiri, on the other hand, reminded Arya that she didn't even want to listen to Rihanna at first. For that, Arya apologized and claimed that she was now convinced of everything, so she would be happy to learn from Rain. Rain, on the other hand, was just glad to be able to teach the girls something. Lin, on the other hand, claimed that she wouldn't lose to the others and decided to use earth control right on the kitchen table. Although Rain tried to stop her, it was too late. With her power, the girl filled the entire kitchen with earth. Rain explained that it was because she had put too much mana into the spell, and that was not a good thing to do. Lin chuckled guiltily and apologized to everyone. But it was already too late. Kiri had caught up with her. The girl grabbed Lin's face again and indignantly asked her what they should do with her. Lin, on the other hand, only shouted that she was against violence. Kiri just didn't understand what they should do now, as there was dirt lying all over the room. Lin, on the other hand, continued to guiltily apologize to everyone. Arya was only worried about her clothes at all. Lim even promised that such a thing wouldn't happen again when she got stronger. Milia laughed and realized that they had never had such fun while eating before. At this time, Sui came over to her and Milia started wiping her face with a handkerchief. Not thinking long, Milia suggested that the girls go for a swim. Kiri didn't realize if Milia was serious, because the lake was very far away. Then Rain asked if they had a bathtub, to which they replied that of course they didn't have a bathtub. Milia argued that bathtubs were the domain of aristocrats, and to constantly heat the water you need magical tools, and they are very expensive. Rain wondered about this. Without thinking for long, he suggested that he make this bath himself. Hearing this, the girls became visibly animated. They began to ask Rain when he would be able to give them a bath, to which Rain replied that he would make it with magic, so it wouldn't take long. However, the boy added that he would need a large open space. Milia, however, told him that there was a warehouse near the house, and he could safely use it. The girls were so excited about having a bathtub that they had already started talking about clothes baskets, towels, and soap. Without a moment's hesitation, they all dashed out of the house to bring everything they needed. Rain didn't even know how to understand it. After all, those just took it all in stride and decided everything for him. When Rain was shown the room where the girls wanted to take a bath, however, he was dumbfounded. Just in case, he asked if they were sure they wanted such a huge bathtub, to which Milia replied that the bigger the better. Rain was still horrified. After all, the room was the biggest warehouse in the village. But Milia argued that they wouldn't use it anyway. Arya, on the other hand, had always dreamed of having a bathtub next to the house. Milia was also happy that they would finally have a bathtub. Eri wanted to be able to swim, so she asked Rain to make a deep bathtub. Arya, on the other hand, requested a shower and a tile floor to be stylish. Lin asked Rain to make a lion statue with hot water flowing from it. Sui wanted a slide. After all, the girls were counting on Rain and hoping for a good job. Rain, however, although he told the girls that he would try to do everything they requested, did not yet understand how he could do it all. But Rain looked at the delighted faces of the girls and realized that he just couldn't back down. He couldn't upset the girls. First of all, Rain decided to try to solve the land issue. The guy realized that such a warehouse would require a lot of land. Therefore, using the creation of land, Rain made quite a lot of it. Lin, looking at what was going on, noticed how great Rain was at controlling the land. The same only replied that Lin would be able to do so soon too and set to work again. With the help of the earth control, Rain decided to mold the shape of the bathtub. Then the boy had another question. Where to place the bathtub? So he pointed to one place and asked the girls if it would be suitable, to which they replied that it would. Then Rain used the earth control spell again to finally shape the bathtub. After a couple of moments, the earth took shape, much to the consternation of Sui and Lin. Finally, the shape of the bathtub was ready. Then Kiri and Arya asked the guy if he was finished looking at what he had just done, to which Rain replied that he wasn't finished yet and was going to use a spell called tempering at the end. And after finally using this tempering, Rain finished building the bathtub. He also added the tiles as the girls requested. Lin was delighted when she realized that it was possible to create even such a thing with magic. Arya's bathtub seemed very beautiful, but the girl doubted that it had actually hardened. Then she decided to tap it with her fist. To check better, the girls climbed inside and realized that the bathtub was really hard. The material was similar to ceramic, and Arya couldn't even believe that Mania was capable of creating something like that. Rain, on the other hand, claimed that he had created all of this with the initial spells, and now he decided to fill the bathtub with water and at the same time show the girls a spell that they had already studied called water creation. With that, Rain first made a large volume of water over the bathtub and then drained it directly into it. To the delighted girls, he claimed that even such a thing could be done with magic. And to finish it off, something else had to be done. Rain dipped his hand into the water and used heat. Then the girls immediately started to test the water. The water was hot, which surprised those. The girls even wondered if magic even had limits. Rain, however, said that he would continue building outside, and those could enjoy the bath. That's what the girls did after Rain left. They quickly stripped off their clothes and climbed into the bathtub. They couldn't even believe that they now had their own hot bath. Suddenly, Lin noticed the lion she had ordered, but it looked more like a flower. Sui, however, still thought the idea was original. Rain was standing outside at this time, but he could hear all the girls' conversations. He was glad that the girls liked what he had done. Then the guy decided to soundproof the place and make the walls thicker. At this point, the girls' conversation took a wrong turn. They started discussing each other's breasts. Rain, who heard all this talk, felt awkward. Kiri, on the other hand, claimed that having big breasts only caused one problem. Her shoulders were constantly getting stiff. The girl said that she would give her breasts to Arya if only she could. Hearing this, Arya was dumbfounded, because she herself thought that large breasts only hindered. Kiri didn't like such words, so she started pawing the girl's breasts to help her since her breasts were in the way. Arya embarrassedly ordered her to stop pulling her breasts. Kiri was sure that Rain would like her breasts, and Arya embarrassedly argued that there was no reason for her to show her breasts to Rain. At this time, Rain, who was standing outside and heard everything, fell to his knees out of embarrassment and grabbed his head. "Why is it always me?" thought the indignant Rain. He began to convince himself that he hadn't overheard anything, and he wasn't interested at all. Then, to distract himself, Rain began to create readings and force himself not to think about what he had heard. But no matter how hard he tried, he failed. The girls' conversations continued. They talked about how someone had gotten fat and how their breasts were bouncing. Rain, on the other hand, just forced himself not to listen to any of that and just do the wall. Finally, the girls got their swim on and started to get dressed. Kiri said that she was still confident that Rain was not like that. The girl argued that he was definitely a good guy and could be relied on. Arya, on the other hand, just hoped that Kiri was right. Milia, meanwhile, while brushing her hair, added that she too thought that Rain wasn't a bad person. Then Arya indignantly reminded her friends that Rain was just their employee and that was all. But they responded by only telling her not to get angry. After a while, the girls were already outside and enjoying the coolness that came after the heat of the bathtub. At this time, Rain kept muttering to himself and convincing himself that he couldn't hear anything while caulking the wall. Then Arya approached him and, hearing him say something, asked him what he was talking about. But Rain didn't react to anyone, even though the girls just wanted to tell him that he could wash now too. By nightfall, the forest had become restless. The monsters woke up and ran out to hunt. But something else was amiss. Suddenly, the head of one of the monsters flew off his shoulders and landed somewhere in the bushes. Then the other wolves, suddenly, howled at the moon. The next day, Arya continued to thank Rain for the new bath and offered to work hard today for the good of the village. Rain was not enthusiastic about such an offer as he was very tired. At this moment, Kiri remembered and asked Arya when she was going to register Rain in their village. Rain, on the other hand, didn't understand why registration was necessary and asked the girls about it. But then Milia reminded everyone that only men can register new residents. But before that, it was Arya who was doing it. As soon as it was mentioned that the village was near the demonic forest, everyone immediately refused. Rain already understood why that was the case. After all, the forest was a very dangerous place. Even 100 soldiers wouldn't be enough there. Naturally, no one wants to put themselves at risk. Then the girls started asking Rain to go and just put their name in. The girls claimed that now they could only rely on him. Arya said that Rain should just go to the town hall and register, and he could leave the rest to them. Rain agreed, but planned to go a little later. The guy wanted to find the girls' workers. He admitted that he had only gotten to this place by chance. And once the demon forest calmed down, he would leave. Lin was very upset by this statement, because then no one would be able to teach her magic. But Rain asked the girl not to worry and promised her that he would teach her everything she could use to defend the village. But he couldn't stay here forever. Kiri was also angered by this decision and decided to ask Rain why he wanted to leave. Rain, on the other hand, didn't even know how to explain everything to the girls. But Arya stated that she was fine with it. The girl argued that Rain had already done a lot for their village, so keeping him by force would be unfair. But Kiri continued to torment Rain with the question of what he didn't like about their village. Milia, on the other hand, was going to do as Arya decided. In that case, Kiri let Rain go and decided to do what everyone else would do. Area, meanwhile, warned Rain that it would take about a week to get to the town hall. So the sooner Rain got out the better. After some time, Rain did get ready to go. Area decided to go with Rain. She put on warm clothes and, looking at a naked Rain, asked if he would really be okay in his clothes. The girl claimed that it would be very cold on the way. Rain claimed that he was using a magic called wind protection. Area was surprised by such a statement, since she had never heard of such magic. Then Rain decided to show himself to that one. He pointed his hand at the girl and said the right words. After a moment, Area felt that she was not cold at all. Then the girl realized that this spell was protecting Rain from the cold wind. Along the way, Area said that it was warm near the semantic forest, but one should not forget that it was the north side. The girl said that when she went to the town hall, it was very cold. But now that Rain and her magic are around, she is not afraid of it at all. Rain, on the other hand, was just glad that he was able to help Area. Area at this point admitted that she felt like Rain's magic was omnipotent. She thought that no matter what country he went to, he could be a savior everywhere. With his head down, Rain realized that things used to be very different. He told Area how others constantly mocked him because of his mage and never thanked him. Also, Rain confessed that he only got to this place because he was kicked out of his home. So now the guy just has no place to go. Hearing this, Area was quite surprised. That's when the girl realized that Rain was very much like her. After all, in that country, the position depends on your magical ability. And if you don't have any, you won't even be treated as a human being. And when Area was younger, she was summoned by her father to his office. He had heard that Area could not learn magic even from the most famous royal magicians, and decided that such mediocrities as Area did not need the House of Fremia. The father claimed that Area had lost the right to bear their family name, and he was banishing the girl from the family. The father did not care at all where Area would go. After hearing Aria's story like this, Rain's eyes filled with regret. But Area claimed that this village had become Rain's home and all the girls were members of his family. Rain now understood Area, even envied her. The girl also added that Rain could stay in their village forever. But at that moment the boy interrupted her and asked her to be quiet. He saw the monsters ahead and immediately alerted Area. Area didn't understand. Where did the monsters come from? After all, they never leave the demon forest without a reason. At this moment, Rain noticed that the monsters were scared in some way. After just a moment, the wolves howled. That howl made Area cover her ears. Then the wolves started to go somewhere while growling at the same time. Area was puzzled and decided to ask Rain what was that. Rain, however, suggested that the girl hurry back to the village. The guy claimed that perhaps trouble was about to happen. Area didn't understand what had gotten into Rain. Then the guy explained that when the forest takes damage, it stores magic energy to recover and monsters can absorb that energy. This time, however, the guys were attacked by a huge number of wolves and Rain had to use a huge amount of mana to defeat them. Rain was sure that something had absorbed the rest of the mana and was now dwelling in the forest. And if even the other demons were afraid of him, it would be difficult to defeat him. Area realized that with this Rain wanted to say that a very strong demon had appeared near the village. Then the girl decided that they should go back, but it was about halfway to the village. Rain, however, noticed how panicked Area was and asked her not to worry. He took the girl in his arms and told her to hold on tight. Area was clearly unprepared for this turn of events and decided to pronto slow Rain down. But he asked her not to talk yet, so as not to bite her tongue. Area still asked if he was using body reinforcement now, but before the girl could speak, Rain had already lifted his feet off the ground. In just a moment, the guys were already rushing back at high speed. At this time, the unsuspecting Kiri decided to get some water, but realized that she had to walk very far to do so. The girl then decided to ask Rain for it when he returned. She thought that a well near the village would be a great idea. At that moment, strange sounds were heard from the forest. At what she saw, the girl dropped the bucket of water and opened her mouth. In front of her was an intimidating wolf-like monster that she had never seen before. Let's go back half a day. Lynn entered the house with 2 slaughtered rabbits in her hands. She wanted to brag about her catch to the others. Milia was delighted to see such a big catch from Lynn, while the disgruntled Kiri asked if these rabbits were definitely not monsters. But Lin didn't think that these rabbits were like monsters, and yes, they would turn to stone after death. Milia even thought about how nice it would be if monsters could be eaten too. Kiri and Lin, on the other hand, were clearly unfazed by such a thought. Kiri also asked Lin to be more careful in the forest. The girl argued that although Rain had made a moat around the village, it was still very dangerous in the demonic forest. Milia was worried about Arya and Rain at this time, for they had gone to the town hall. But Lin asked the other one not to worry. The girl claimed that she could protect everyone. Lin believed that they would be able to kill any monster, because they were trained by Rain himself. That's when Kiri decided to go get water. Some time passed. Milia, Sui and Lin were in the house and were killing the rabbits that Lin had brought. At that time, a dazed Kiri entered the house and surprised everyone with her appearance. Kiri was all tired and was trying to catch her breath. The other girls immediately ran up to her and excitedly started asking her what was wrong. But Kiri shut them up, and when she was satisfied that everything was quiet, she explained to the girls that a huge black wolf came out of the demonic forest. Kiri claimed that she had never met one before. It might even be able to jump over the moat that Rain had made. But Milia recalled Rain's words when he claimed that demons couldn't overcome that moat. Then, as positive as ever, Lin asked Kiri not to worry and to think about it after lunch. But suddenly, there was a big rumbling sound. Then the noise was heard on the roof of the house. The girls were very frightened and were afraid to move. After a moment more, a howl was heard. All the dishes began to fall from the shelves, and immortal Lin went to the window hoping to get a glimpse of the wolf whose howl she hadn't heard before. At that moment, the wolf revealed itself. He wandered right under the windows of the house and peered at the inquisitive Lin. From terror, the girls could not move. Before they could blink an eye, the wolf was at the windows of the house. The windows could not withstand it, so the panes began to fly everywhere into small pieces. Lin didn't realize what kind of monster it was in the first place. Kiri, on the other hand, shouted at the same time that it was the one she was talking about. And, as it turned out, he was still able to overcome the moat. The girls didn't understand what they should do now, since Rain wasn't in the village. Kiri suggested that they call Rain for help, but Milia argued that it was impossible, because she and Arya were too far away. Milia suggested that they hide in their rooms and barricade the doors for the time being. And when the girls were already hidden, the wolf continued to destroy everything. Lin was already on edge and wondered when the wolf would leave already, but Sui didn't think the wolf would retreat. The girl claimed that this wolf smirked when it saw them. It was so. The wolf did indeed show the girls its grin when it first attacked. Then Lin wondered if they could overpower this wolf like her brother, Rain. But Kiri asked Lin to stop thinking about that and think about how they could survive until he came. At that moment, Milia stated that she remembered something. The girl claimed that Rain had left them special artifacts for such an occasion. Everyone was happy about this statement and praised Rain for his foresight. Then Lin asked where were these artifacts, to which Milia replied that they were in Rain's room. In that case, the girl cheerfully offered to take them and defeat that monster. Then, without thinking long, everyone went to Rain's room and started looking for the artifacts that Milia had told them about. Kiri argued that the artifacts should be found as soon as possible and asked Milia, who was standing in the doorway, to come into the room sooner. But Milia had other plans. She walked out the door and closed the door behind her. The girls in the room noticed this and immediately asked her to open the door. But Milia asked them to stay inside and not to come out until it was quiet. Kiri realized that Milia wanted to be bait for the wolf. The girl began to knock diligently on the door and asked Milia not to be silly. But Milia only asked Kiri to take care of the others. Then the girls started running towards the door, half shouting for her girlfriends to stop. Lin, on the other hand, argued that they needed to get Kiri back. At this time Milia walked through the ruined house and was horrified. She had not heard before that monsters eat very differently from normal animals. When they attacked the village, there weren't even bones left of the people they had killed. The girl didn't know if that was true or not, but she was sure that Rain would be able to sort it all out. Milia thought that there was only one way out. She hoped that the demon would remain satisfied with just her. And although Milia had little faith in this Milia, if her hunch is correct, the others will be saved. And, lo and behold, the girl had already touched the doorknob. Milia's hand was trembling, but she knew that she needed to pull herself together and calm down. Finally, the girl opened the door and decided to run as far away as possible without looking back, because the house could be damaged even more. But suddenly, the same sinister wolf appeared in front of her. Its terrifying face and deafening howl terrified Milia. The girl couldn't believe that she couldn't buy even a little bit of time. Closing her eyes, she remembered her family. Sui's relatives, Lin, Aria, and Kiri. In the end, Milia decided that she was willing to sacrifice her life to protect the smiles of her loved ones. Closing her eyes, Milia hoped for nothing. But suddenly, the ground began to fly into the monster. Then Milia opened her eyes and turned around. It was the girls. They decided to attack the monster with earth control magic. Milia didn't realize what her friends were doing, for she had told them to hide. But those asked Milia to be quiet and claimed that they wouldn't leave her to die. At this time, the monster shifted its gaze back to Milia. Sui and Lin's strength was already gone, and the monster didn't care at all. Then, it opened its mouth and was ready to eat Milia. But, all of a sudden, a huge block came out of the ground, which put the monster on top of itself, preventing it from eating Milia. Milia looked at the monster and understood nothing. Sui, Lin, and Kiri also froze in surprise. At this time, the monster plopped down on the ground, and someone's cloak appeared behind Milia's back. It was Rain led by Aria. Lin and Sui were more excited than the others to see them. Aria first went over to Milia, who was sitting on her lap. Milia, on the other hand, asked Aria why they were here, to which Aria replied that they had heard a terrible howl on the way, so they had decided to return. Rain was also glad that Milia was all right, though he didn't show it. He only ordered the girls to stay where they were, and he himself headed towards the demon. At this time, the monster had already woken up and was standing on its paws right in front of Rain. Usually, the spell that Rain used against this monster would kill the demons immediately, because Rain realized that this demon was clearly much stronger than all the ones he had fought so far. Rain was certain that this monster shouldn't be here and seemed to be blindly following his instincts. Looking at the monster's paws, Rain assumed that the monster would want to escape, but the boy knew it was useless. He wasn't going to let such a monster escape. Rain realized that the monster had already sensed that there was no way for it to survive. Then there was only one way left for this monster. Rain decided to gather all his strength and destroy the monster with a single spell. And when the monster had already grabbed Rain's shoulder with his mouth, he realized that he could not hurt the guy. At that time, Rain just made a wave of his hand, and the monster immediately began to fly away. It flew away into the mountains, somewhere very far away. The admiring girls just looked at what was happening and marveled at such power. Finally, the monster reached the mountain and crashed into it, resulting in a big explosion. After a moment, it was already visible that the monster had made a hole in the mountain due to how hard Rain had thrown it. After all that was left of the monster were rocks and the girl's house was in ruins, Kiri began to scold Milia. The girl asked what was she thinking and why did she choose to sacrifice herself for others. Milia only responded with a guilty apology. Lin asked Kiri to calm down because Milia had already apologized. But Kiri also yelled at Lin and said that she would deal with it herself. Kiri just didn't understand why Milia did that, because she could have died. With tears in her eyes, the girl said that they would all be very sad if it happened like that. At this time, Rain stood near the magic stones that the monster had left behind and pondered. Then Aria came up to him and asked him why he was standing there and if anything had happened. It was so unexpected for the guy that he even shuddered. The girl just didn't understand why Rain had such a sad face, because he had saved them all. But Rain was silent. Then Aria called out to him again. She also decided to call out to the others who had just been in such a tight embrace. Then they all came up to the boy and began to thank him for his help, and hugged him. Rain, on the other hand, saw fit to apologize. He apologized for putting the girls in danger. He realized that he should not have gone and left the village unprotected. Rain believed that, if you think about it, it was his fault. But the girls did not understand why Rain was apologizing. After all, he had saved them. Then Aria walked up to the guy and took his hand. Then the girl asked Rain to raise his head, and when he did, Aria said that it was not his fault. Aria believed that she was the one who dragged the boy to the town hall. so all the responsibility was hers. The girl claimed that it was thanks to Rain that no one was hurt, because he was the one who was able to defeat that monster. Finally, Arya thanked Rain from the bottom of her heart for saving her. Lin and Sui were in agreement with Arya, because Rain really does help them all the time. Also, Arya added that she would like to apologize. The girl said that until that moment, she didn't fully trust Rain, and treated him unfairly. Although Kiri and Millia wanted to object, Arya still believed that it was true. The girl admitted that she wanted to use Rain for the good of their village. Every day she worried that he could escape, because he had no reason to stay in this village. However, Rain did not run away and helped the girls a lot. Arya said with tears in her eyes that Rain still helps their village, no matter how selfishly she acted. The girl confessed while wiping her tears that Rain was a very good person. Finally, Arya dared and apologized to Rain. She also added that she had one request. Arya asked the boy to stay in their village and become part of their family. Rain, on the other hand, decided to go to the town hall first. The boy also sadly remembered that he would also need to fix the house. Tomorrow, Rain planned to think about a new defense against demons, and today he suggested that the girl rest. Lin, on the other hand, noticed that Rain's face was as red as a tomato for some reason and decided to ask him about it. Rain, on the other hand, indignantly replied that his face was not red at all. The boys slept in a rundown house. At some point, the boy wondered, why are all the girls sleeping in the same room with him? Millia claimed it was because of the attack. Besides, only Rain's room was left intact, and with the rain that was falling outside, no one wanted to sleep. Also sleeping with Rain were Lin and Sui, whom he obviously didn't want to wake up. But Rain still didn't like this whole situation. He realized that he couldn't go on like this and needed to rebuild the house as soon as possible. After the demon's attack, the guys had almost no food left. There wouldn't be enough supplies for long. But positive Kiri thought it was better than nothing. But Arya was too eager to have a delicious meal after such stress. Kiri, on the other hand, asked Arya not to get upset, because it wasn't the worst. And the worst part was that there was only ruins left of the house. Arya was really pissed off by this. She thought that she should ask Rain to rebuild the house, because it was impossible to live in ruins. Then Kiri wondered how Rain could rebuild it all. After all, it would take forever. Kiri also thought that asking Rihanna to help again was wrong. Besides, there's still a welcome party to organize. Suddenly, the ground beneath the girls' feet trembled. They thought it was an earthquake. At that moment, Millia entered the room and asked Arya and Kiri what was that. To which Arya replied that they should run away from the house because it was dangerous to stay inside. When the girls ran out of the house, they were shocked by what they saw. They saw the whole mansion in front of them. Without thinking long, the girls went to the door of this magnificent house. Arya was just sure that it was Rain's work. Millia, on the other hand, was no longer surprised at anything since the moment they met Rain. And Kiri was just shocked. Finally, Arya opened the door and stepped inside. Immediately, she asked if Rain was here. There was silence in response. But what the girls saw struck them again. This house was simply magnificent. At that moment, Rain's voice was heard behind the girls. He apologized and understood that the girls were surprised. Arya turned around and saw Rain led by Sui and Lin. Rain began to explain that it was dangerous to stay in such a house that was almost destroyed by a monster. Besides, the guys don't know when they will be attacked again. Therefore, Rain decided to rebuild the house as soon as possible. The guy apologized to the girls for not warning them. The girls, on the other hand, claimed that they just didn't expect Rain to rebuild the house so quickly, and having a party in a destroyed house would be rather strange. Arya just asked Rain to warn him next time he was going to do something like that. Millia, seeing that Arya could act nice, was quite surprised. Arya, on the other hand, indignantly asked Millia who she even thought she was. Rain, meanwhile, explained to the girls which way the kitchen was and suggested that they cook something, since none of them had eaten breakfast yet. When the girls entered the kitchen, they were even more pleasantly surprised. They could not believe their eyes. The kitchen looked simply gorgeous. The girls even thought that with such a kitchen, they would be able to eat delicacies at least every day. After a while, everyone had eaten, and the plates were empty. Rain told the girls the whole story that had happened to him shortly before he went to the village. The girls were shocked when they heard the story and thought the king was an idiot. Rain, however, claimed that everything was already in the past and asked those not to dwell on the bad things. But Kiri was angry that Rain had been wronged and decided to destroy the country from which he came to then. Rain asked those to calm down. Roya, on the other hand, argued that all countries have some not-so-good people and their strap is no exception. Arya confessed it all that she had been very rude and decided to apologize again to Rain. At some point, Rain realized that the situation had gotten kind of heavy. Then Arya interrupted the silence. She asked the boy if all this meant that he had gone to another country to start a new life. The girl thought that in that case, Rain could stay to live in their village. Rain, on the other hand, asked Arya not to worry. He confessed that he liked their village very much. After all, everyone was just looking for an excuse to sling mud at Rain and his country. Only one person was really kind to him. However, the girls accepted him as a member of the family. The boy claimed that it was enough for him that they ate good food and laughed together. And before Rain could finish speaking, Kiri pounced on him with tears. She clutched the boy to her chest and felt sorry for how much he had to go through. The girl said that Rain might not be able to hold back and cried. But Rain was only in pain and couldn't breathe at all. At this moment, the guy remembered that he wanted to ask the girls something else. He wondered why there were only girls left in the village. Such a question took the girls by surprise. They looked at each other and decided to tell Rain. The girls explained that more than half of the men had died because of the demon attack, and the remaining villagers, fearing another attack, had decided to leave the village. That was when the tragedy occurred. Some of the men conspired to steal supplies from the village and then made a hasty escape. Arya explained that it was because of this that she couldn't trust Rain right away. Rain, on the other hand, understood. After all, anyone would be careful with strangers. At that moment, a joyful Lin appeared. She began to praise Rain for the stunning house and the large number of rooms, as well as the second floor. Kiri realized that Lin was being a bully again and decided to scold her for it. Lin, however, admitted that she was just bored while talking about serious topics. And so that Kiri did not hit her again. The girl shouted her catchphrase, "I'm against violence." Rain at this point offered to show the girls the house. He had tried his best, so he asked them to appreciate his work. The girls started walking down the hallway and looking at each room. They praised Rain for the work he had done and could not get enough of the house. Rain explained that he had made the house bigger so that more rooms could be created. That way, each of the girls could choose any room they liked. The girls were amazed at such work by Rain and realized that magic is amazing after all. At some point, Rain led Milia to the locker room, and then they entered the main room. It was the bathtub. Seeing it, Milia was dumbfounded. Rain explained that he had just remodeled the bathtub. After all, the old bathtub had many flaws. When Rain returned to the living room, he was greeted by Lin and asked him to go with her to see the second floor. When everyone went up to the second floor, Rain said that he had added 2 rooms on the second floor. The first room is the library. This kind of news affected Sui and Lin a little bit. Sui was simply delighted, but Lin was clearly not a fan of books. Rain explained that the library had many books about studying magic, and they were all on the shelves. That was when Sui decided that she would live right here in the library. Arya at this time took one of the books from the shelf, and after looking at it, she realized that such books could not be found anywhere in their country. And if the court sorcerers saw this library, they would burn with envy. Sui Rain, on the other hand, advised them not to be shy about using this library. Rain then walked over to the pensive Lin and stroked her head. Lin then asked the guy what was the matter, to which Rain asked a counter-question. "Are you bored, Lin?" Lin, on the other hand, explained that instead of reading books, she would rather practice. After all, she wasn't very good at it yet. Then Rain went to show her another room. He was sure that this was the room she would like. After opening the door, Rain and Lin entered the training room. Lin was delighted. The room was very spacious and even had targets, which the girl liked very much. Rain, on the other hand, added that he had added protective magic to the walls so that they wouldn't break. At this time, the rest of the girls had already pulled up to them, who also liked the training room. But then Rain added that there was something else left and asked the girls to follow him. First they had to go down to the first floor. Then the guys went through some door and started to climb another staircase. And although Arya asked the guy where this staircase led to, he didn't tell her anything. While the guys were going up, Lin and Sui even managed to get tired, but Rain claimed that there wasn't much left to go. Finally, the guys made it. Rain led them to the observation deck from where they had a good view of the entire surroundings. The girls looked out the big windows and enjoyed the beauty. They had never seen the mountains from such a height. For the next few minutes the girls looked around and just enjoyed the beauty while Rain stood back, satisfied with his work. At some point, Lin noticed that walls had appeared around the village. The girl was surprised and didn't understand. When did Rain have time to make them? To which Rain replied that he had done it all very early, while the girls were still asleep. Arya, on the other hand, claimed that she could wake up from any rustle and did not understand how she could not have noticed such a thing. Milia suggested that they had had a very sound sleep. Lin, however, still complained that the windows on the landing were too high up and she couldn't see anything. Rain laughed and promised the girl to think about it some more. Then Arya approached Rain again and told him that he had not only helped the village but had agreed to teach them magic. Rain, however, was not quite sure what Arya meant and decided to ask about it. Arya explained that even she, who had no talent in magic, was given a chance to become stronger by Rain, and thanks to him, they all have a chance to protect their home on their own. But before Arya could finish speaking, Rain abruptly grabbed her by the shoulders. He realized that what Arya meant was that he could ask for anything he wanted. This took Arya by surprise and she couldn't answer the guy anything thickly. Then Rain said that in that case he wanted to continue their training. The guy was sure that the girls would give their best. That's why Rain said that he would look forward to seeing the girls' new results. That's when Arya realized what they had even signed up for. And after a while, Rain stated that he wanted the girls to train in the demonic forest, to which Arya was quite indignant. The girl didn't understand why they couldn't just keep practicing in the house. She thought the forest was too dangerous. So Rain asked the girls to say what they thought of the demonic forest, to which they took turns answering. Kiri thought that the demonic forest was a senseless death. Sui thought that the demonic forest was a real hell. Milia thought about it and answered that the demon forest was a demon's lair. Lin, on the other hand, thought that the demonic forest was suicide. Rain, on the other hand, argued that the girls were absolutely right, but not completely. The guy explained that the forest had its advantages and asked if the girls knew what those advantages were. To which Milia replied that everything grows much faster in a demonic forest. Lin, on the other hand, decided to be smart and said that it was because of the warm temperature inside the forest. This is when Arya intervened. She claimed that they already knew that. The girl just didn't understand how it all related to each other. Rain, however, explained to the impatient Arya that that was the whole point. The guy explained that the demonic forest was imbued with strong magical energy. In other words, the process of learning magic would go much faster. Rain was determined to take advantage of this feature. Such a twist made Arya a little wary and worried. Rain, however, quickly calculated everything and added that 1 year of training in the demonic forest was equivalent to 10 years of training outside. The girls couldn't even believe what he said. Rain, on the other hand, explained that he had learned about this trait when he was training as an anti-demon aristocrat. Arya then realized that Rain wanted to tell the girls that if they trained in the demonic forest, they would become stronger and much faster. And to measure the girls' progress, Rain had brought some cards. At first, Arya thought it was the magic determiner that Rain had given them before. But Rain explained that this card worked a little differently and that one should try to infuse mana into it. That's what Arya did. As a result, inscriptions began to appear on the identifier. Rain explained that the identifier used to show the girls their element. Now it was showing the characteristics of the girls' bodies. After seeing Arya's characteristics, Rain remarked that her stamina was not bad, but her strength was a problem. The girl suggested that it was due to the fact that she had been working out a lot. Then Payne suggested that the other girls should also try to infuse their mana into the determinant. This the girls did. They all had different, but in their own way good characteristics. It was all clear to Rain now, and Arya wondered what was next. To which Rain replied that next they would train. After a while, the guys reached the demonic forest. The girls couldn't believe that they had really come to it. They were all quite frightened. Then Rain decided to show them some examples and asked them to watch carefully. Now the guy was demonstrating a body-strengthening spell that increased physical abilities. However, Rain added that the longer the girls used this spell, the more strength they would need to maintain it. The guy claimed that with body strengthening, the girls would even be able to overpower an unstrength demon. Rain then began to explain something else to the girls. He found medicinal herbs that only grow in demonic forests and touched them with his hand. Rain claimed that these plants should be gathered together. Kiri was interested in this gathering and inquired if these plants could not simply be picked, to which Rain replied that by using a gathering spell, the freshness of the plant could be preserved forever. Besides, if you just pick this plant, it would lose most of its healing properties. Also, the guy added that one should store this plant in a safe place. Thus, if you keep it in an ordinary bottle, it can easily break. But if you use a reinforcement spell on the bottle, you can no longer break it so easily. Rain told the interested girls that if they found it and brought it home, their training would be over. It all seemed to sound easy. But suddenly, Rain noticed Aria's strange face. The girl confessed that she thought Rain would have them kill some powerful demon. Rain was surprised to hear that and asked if she thought he was a monster. Rain realized that it would be too dangerous for the girls now. Aria then asked if they needed to fight, to which Rain replied that the girls needed to increase their supply of magic power first. After all, demons could also become stronger by increasing their mana reserve. Rain took wolves as an example. They have about 10 units of mana. Rain argued that Aria only had 3 units of mana at the moment, and to deal with the wolves she needed at least 7 units. Then Milia asked why not just practice. For example, to train their muscles. But Rain explained to the one that it wouldn't help. After that, the guy suggested that the girls should start searching for the cherished plant, and if they met a demon, they should immediately run away. Rain argued that the girls would not be able to handle the demons now and remarked that they were now more tired than usual. That's when the girls realized that they were really very tired, even though they had done almost nothing. Rain explained that the further the girls went into the forest, the more the magical power of the forest would be pressed upon them. And if one reached the center of the forest at all, one might even die from the intense pressure. That was why the girls were so exhausted right now. The guy was trying to convey to them that they needed to get used to such a great pressure of the forest to begin with. It was here that the badly tired Lin realized that the teaching would be far from easy. At this time, Rain added that based on everything he had said, it could be concluded that it would be better for the girls not to go deep into the forest. So Lin, who had wanted so badly to go exactly deep into the forest, had now already promised that she wouldn't go anywhere. At this moment, Rain thought for a bit and realized that the demon forest could be considered a dungeon. Lin, who didn't understand much right now, asked Rain for more details on the topic. Then Rain told the girls that he had been to the demonic forest once before. And walking through the jungle, the guy came across a volcano. And walking a little further, Rain came across a desert. Because either way, the demonic forest is a very strange place. Hearing such a story, Lin and Sui felt as if they had regained their strength. They wanted to go to the demonic forest again, because they found it very interesting from Rain's story. But Rain didn't think so. He tried to convey to the girls that going through the forest and suddenly falling into a precipice without noticing the precipice was not very interesting. When you're constantly being hunted by demons, it's not very interesting. When you don't eat or sleep for days, it's not very interesting. When you're trying to find a place just to get some rest, it's not very interesting. That's when Lin took back her words. After all the explanations, Rain decided to leave the girls alone to start searching for healing herbs. After a while, there were many jars of healing herbs on the table in the girls' ancestral home. Rain showed Kiri such a spell as extraction using one of the plants as an example. The boy explained to the delighted Kiri that the juice of healing plants could be extracted with this spell. Then the girl, taking the flask and scrutinizing it, inquired how to use this juice. To which Rain gave the example that the juice could be used instead of fertilizer. Kiri found such an example funny. The girl even thought that Rain was just joking. That's when Rain realized that the girls could already move on to the next step in their training, but he also realized that they were not working well separately. Therefore, Rain contemplated the idea of combining from. In the end, the lad decided to do so and saw fit to assign roles to the girls. The girls didn't understand what he was talking about at first, but Rain explained that he wanted to give each one a role so she would know what she should do in the group. The guy claimed that when the girls become stronger, certain characteristics and will develop better than the rest. Rain also added that when training in the demonic forest, the girls should consider each girl's strengths. For example, Arya would fit the role of a tank, and Lin the role of a scout or scout. After explaining this to the girls, he asked them if they understood what he was even talking about. Arya then objected. She claimed that she was already the village head. Lin, on the other hand, took Rain's words to mean that she just needed to climb a tree and survey the area. But this was the kind of work she really liked. Rain then proceeded to assign roles for the girls. He claimed that Sui could support the others with her magic, and Kiri could help the girls with potions and gather materials. Finally, it was Milya's turn. Rain firmly stated that Milya would fit the role of a healer. The others were happy that Milya had been assigned this role by Rain. After all, the role of a healer is very useful, and with Milya's healing, one would not have to worry about wounds. Even though Milya had agreed to take on such a role, the girl's face was sad for some reason. One day, Rain returned home extremely tired and exhausted. He was met by Kiri, who noticed that he was tired and offered him tea. Rain took a sip. He liked the tea very much, so he asked what kind of tea was it. To which Kiri replied that she had brewed a medicinal herb from the demonic forest. The girl also said that she learned in a book that these herbs help relieve fatigue. That was why she decided to make this tea. Satisfied and cheerful, Rain suggested that in that case, she should gather more of these herbs next time. Later, the boys went to practice. Today, it was held outside. Kiri decided to ask Rain how they were doing, to which the guy replied that his students had clearly gotten better. Sui was trying her hand at water magic. The girl was doing well and was free to control it. But not for long. In the end, all the water in the air poured down on Sui. Lin was not wasting time at this time either. She was practicing her earth control magic. But something went wrong and she found herself under a mountain of earth. But it wouldn't stop. Rain advised Lin to stop the flow of mana and then take a bath. Kiri, on the other hand, noticed a pattern in Lin. She realized that the stronger Lin became, the stranger her mistakes became. At this moment, Arya was also practicing her skills and asked Rihanna to look at the result. The satisfied girl said that after practicing, she was able to crush a rock, and she seemed to have learned how to use body strengthening. But Rain claimed that Arya should train magic, not muscles. But even what Arya did was still incredible. Kiri also decided to train herself. In the end, she managed to make one potion. She gave it to Rain to evaluate her work and began to worry about the result. Rain carefully began to compare his potion and Kiri's potion. In the end, Kiri's potion was certainly different from Rain's potion, and Kiri's volume was smaller. Kiri was completely upset by these results. She thought that her potion was no good. But Rain claimed that he was surprised that Kiri was able to achieve such results in such a short time. The guy told the girl that when he started, it took him much longer. Because of that, Rain praised Kiri for doing a good job, which rather embarrassed the girl and made her smile. At that moment, Milya came out of the next room. Kiri noticed her and called out to her. Milya, on the other hand, reacted strangely. Then Kiri realized that Milya would do the same thing today. The girl explained to the uncomprehending Rain that recently Milya had been going out all the time. This news alerted the guy. Then he asked Kiri what's the matter. To which the girl replied that it seems as if Milya is worried about something. Kiri claimed that Milya had never shown how to practice magic. Rain even got a little worried. Meanwhile, Milya had already left the house and headed somewhere in the forest. So Rain decided to go and see what was going on with Milya. When he went outside, Rain wondered if Milya was practicing. But if so, why doesn't she want to approach him? Finally, the guy found the girl standing with her back to him near a tree. Looking closer, Rain realized that Milya was doing something. The girl had a needle in her hands. Then Milya stabbed her finger with the needle so that blood spurted out of her finger. Then the girl used healing magic to heal her finger. But after waiting for a while, Milia realized that she had failed. This was not the first time she had failed, so the girl was quite frustrated. At this moment, she was called out by Rain. Milia even flinched from such an unexpected appearance. Rain first decided to apologize to Milia for following her without permission. The guy just wanted to tell Milia that she could tell him if she had any problems. Then Milia told him that she was having trouble using healing magic. The girl claimed that the problem was that it was only hers, and even the priest didn't know what was wrong. Afterwards, Milia asked the guy if she had told him that she couldn't use magic. This is also the case with healing magic. The girl claimed that to learn how to use it you have to be trained in the church, and they spent a lot of money on it. However, no matter how much Milab was instructed, she failed. Eventually the priest gave up trying to help Milab. Besides, at that time Milia was an aristocrat and her family turned their backs on her. Thus, the girl began to live in this village. Finally, after hearing the whole story, Rain realized what the matter was. Sad Milia, on the other hand, added that seeing how the others were trying, she too decided to try again. The girl claimed that she had studied all the books about magic in the library. However, nothing ever worked. Milia explained that her magic activates but nothing happens. Then Rain thought about Milia's last words about magic being activated, but the wound not being healed. Milia, on the other hand, with tears in her eyes, but with a smile on her face, said that she couldn't help Rain there in the demonic forest. The girl felt that she would only be a hindrance to everyone. But Rain believed that this was not the case at all. He claimed that he would teach magic to everyone and Milia would be no exception. Rain decided not to question Milib about the past, but he did ask Milia to understand that he was not like that priest. Also, Rain added with a smile on his face that he had an idea how he could help that one. Hearing that, Milia seemed to blossom. Rain decided not to delay and started. To begin with, he lifted the sleeves of his shirt for some reason. Then the guy used magic to cut his hand so that quite a lot of blood spurted out. Seeing this, Milia was horrified and didn't understand why the guy did this. So, why would Rain cut his own hand? Milia immediately jumped to her feet and started thinking about what to do, because the wound was very deep. The girl decided that she should return home soon. But Rain argued that there was simply no point in going home and Milia should heal the wound herself. But Milia didn't understand at all how she could do that. Then Rain suggested that the girl heal this wound with the help of healing magic. But Milia claimed that it was impossible and repeated that she could not heal. Rain argued that Milia was wrong. Milia didn't know what he was talking about. Then Rain asked her if she knew how wounds heal. Milia tearfully replied that she did not know that, for she was not a healer. The girl only repeated that she should run home soon. Rain, on the other hand, argued that that was the problem. But Milia didn't understand what the guy was getting at. Rain explained that in the healing spell, you have to clearly visualize how the cells regenerate, and the wound will heal. Rain also reminded the girl that one must clearly visualize the image of how the wound will heal. Milia listened to Rain and decided to try healing it again. The girl pointed her hands at Rain's wound and began to try to heal it. Rain, on the other hand, advised Milia to visualize the blood covering the wound and form a clear image in her head. Milia obeyed her boyfriend and did as he told her. Rain, however, added that the girl needed to make the blood curdle and repair the cells, and if she could do that, the wound would immediately disappear. But no matter how hard Milia tried, she couldn't imagine the wound healing. The girl was already starting to panic, for the blood from the guy's wound kept whipping. Then Rain, looking at the panicking Milia, asked her to calm down. And then try again. Milia closed her eyes and realized that Rain believed in her, therefore she shouldn't panic. And when Milia tried again, the blood began to clot and the wound began to heal. Milia had finally succeeded. And, suddenly, a bright light began to emanate from Rain's hand. In a moment, there wasn't even a scratch on the guy's hand. Rain was glad that Milia had succeeded. He had proved to her that there was nothing difficult about it. But no sooner had the guy finished speaking than Milia pounced on him with a hug. The girl said she was very worried. With tears in her eyes, she asked Rain not to do it again, even though she had asked him to teach him magic. Rain realized his mistake and felt it necessary to apologize to Milia. After a while, when the sun was already on the horizon, the boys decided to eat. Still offended, Milia served Rain the food on the table. He thanked her and remarked that everything looked delicious. Lin noticed that something was wrong with Rain and asked about it. But the latter claimed that he was fine. Kiri also seemed to think that something was wrong with Rain after all. The girl even assumed that the guy had done something wrong again. Rain, on the other hand, was only thinking that Milia was still mad at him, and he should apologize to her again. But later. Right now, addressing everyone, Rain said that starting tomorrow, they would all train in the demonic forest. Some girls were happy about this news, while some girls felt that they weren't strong enough yet and the time hadn't come yet. Arya just didn't expect this day to come so soon. But Rain claimed that the girls had practiced a lot and had already learned the basic skills according to their roles. The guy believed that they were already ready to train in the Daonian forest. Lin and Sui concluded from these words that Milia had already mastered the healing spell, which they were very happy about. Milia herself admitted that she had had trouble with it before, but today it had worked out. Milia also pointed out that she had succeeded only because of Rain. Both Rain and the other girls were happy to hear these words. Then it was decided that all of them would do their best at practice tomorrow. The next day, sitting in a tree in the demon forest, Lin was looking for something. Then the girls came down and reported to Rain that the situation was normal. Rain then decided that they would split up from this place. But Arya had a question. She, being disgruntled and loaded with a bunch of stuff, asked if Rain had decided to get back at her like that. Arya just couldn't believe that they would practice magic like this. But Rain argued that there was no better method than exercise to improve body strength. But the guy also saw that Arya was too heavy and decided to do something different, even though it would not be as effective. But after hearing this, Arya decided to still stay with such a burden on her back. The girl said that she could handle and endure everything, otherwise how could she protect the others? At this moment, looking at Arya, Rain remembered that he had once had to go through the same thing. Therefore, he wished Arya good luck. Rain then asked the girls to divide into teams and start practicing. He decided to just stay nearby in case of danger. After a while, Kiri was already diligently gathering the right herbs, so hard that she tore her clothes. Milia heard this and said that she would mend everything as soon as they got home. Lin, on the other hand, suggested that Kiri ask their so-called grandmother for a new outfit. Arya, hearing such a thing, was very indignant. She asked not to call that woman a grandmother. Rain, on the other hand, did not understand at all which granny they were talking about and decided to ask the girls about it. Milia explained that by granny, Lin meant the countess who governed the territory. Arya, on the other hand, added that this countess's name was Alicia Floria and she was her aunt. Arya claimed that her aunt is a great woman that has been to many battles, and her name is known in every country. Kiri thought that Alicia could be called a living legend at all. Alicia the goddess of fire, Alicia the dragon slayer, Alicia the supreme judge, Alicia the purple blade. These are what people said about her. Milia claimed that Alicia was incredibly strong. Moreover, single-handedly ruling an entire duchy. Rain, from such intense stories from the girls, of course, realized that Alicia was an amazing person. Milia, however, added that when their village was just developing, Isekai'd had appointed Arya as headwoman and had helped them more than once in times of need. Kiri, on the other hand, added that Isekai'd also used to send them new clothes. The girls then decided to ask Arya to thank Isekai'd for all of Isekai'd the next time they met her, for it had been a long time since Arya had visited her at all. Arya understood this, but she also admitted that she was afraid of Alicia. Rain, on the other hand, concluded that Alicia was very strict since there were so many rumors about her. At that moment, Lin and Sui noticed something and told Rain about it. Rain looked in the direction the girls were pointing and saw some rather unusual trees. He said he would go ahead, and told the others to follow him. In the evening of the same day, one conversation took place in the stately mansion. A woman learned from her subordinate that there were only 5 girls living in the village, which she was very indignant about. She ordered her to immediately prepare a carriage for her and go to that village. But her subordinate asked her to reconsider and argued that she did not have to go there personally, as she could send a messenger. In response to these words, a knife flew at the guy. That woman turned out to be Duchess Alicia Floria, who claimed that her favorite niece was in that village. In that case, the lad said he would make all the arrangements. Alicia added that she would tear him to pieces if such a thing happened again. After a while, Alicia was already in the carriage and only hoped that Aria was all right, because winter was coming, and 5 girls would have a hard time surviving. Back to the big lake that Sui and Lin found, Aria, looking at it, assumed that there was a river nearby. But Rain asked the girl not to forget that the demon forest was akin to a dungeon. The guy argued that the lake could have just appeared. Dean at this time sat right by the shore of the lake and thought about what a strange place it was after all. Then, noticing something amiss, the girl called out to Rain. She pointed her finger into the lake and said that there were a lot of big fish. Kiri walked over to Lin at this time and tapped her on the head, asking her not to get so close to the lake because it could be dangerous. Then Rain turned his attention to those big fish that Lin was talking about. He pointed out that they were definitely not demons, but ordinary fish. But Kiri didn't believe it. After all, fish shouldn't be that big. Then Sui suggested that the fish could be that big because of magic. Rain joined Sui and said that she made a good point. The guy explained that everything grows much faster in places where magical energy accumulates, and it seems that living things are no exception. Rain stroked the girl's head and praised her for her ingenuity, because it was probably their magic that made the fish big. Lin, on the other hand, was upset about it. She thought that if they had a fishing rod, they could have caught such a fish. Milia agreed with Lin. It had been a long time since the girls had eaten fish. Besides, it could be prepared for the winter. Rain liked the idea too. He remembered that Aria should have a fishing rod in her backpack. Aria was a little taken aback that the boys had brought a fishing rod with them. The girl just didn't understand why a fishing rod was needed in the demonic forest. Rain, on the other hand, claimed that the fishing rod was needed in case they could get food in the forest. Then Rain and Aria began to diligently search for a fishing rod. When they managed to find it, Aria thought it was too short. The girl doubted that it was really a fishing rod at all. Rain, on the other hand, explained that it was a compound fishing rod, and if they put them together the fishing rod would be ready. The guy was going to use the food as bait, and be sure not to forget the float and sinker. Lin at this time stood and marveled at how much bait Rain was taking. After a while, the boys were already fishing. Aria couldn't stand it. She resented the fact that they had been sitting for so long. But Rain was only asking her to wait a little longer. And, suddenly, finally, the guy finally managed to catch a huge, beautiful fish. And when the fish was already on dry land, Lin asked what to do next. To which Rain suggested that they make a tank of water. Using the magic of creating water, Rain encased the fish in a large ball of water. Aria then decided to join the guys and start fishing too. After a while, there were already several fish in the tank, so Rain suggested creating a bigger tank. Aria looked at all of this with anger. She never managed to catch anything. Then Rain told the girl that it was time to go home, for the sun was about to set. But the indignant Aria argued that she was not going anywhere until she caught something. The girl was determined to catch at least one fish. Rain, on the other hand, asked Aria not to worry, because she might catch something next time. But Aria stood her ground. She felt that she simply could not dishonor the status of the head of the village. At this point, the water became turbulent. Lin even joined the girl to help her pull out the fish. Aria already doubted whether it was a fish at all. Finally, the big fish revealed itself. For a second, it floated out of the water. For a couple seconds after such a triumph, Aria and Lin were simply dumbfounded. Then Lin realized what had happened and started praising Aria. But Aria only asked for help, because the fishing rod was about to break. Then Sui came to the rescue. She used reinforcement magic to make the fishing rod stronger and wished her good luck in the future, saying that now the fishing rod would not break. At this moment, Rain, looking at what was happening, realized that Sui's reinforcement was very strong, and she had practiced a lot to achieve such a level. That was when the guy decided not to help the girls since they could do it without him. Ariu at this time continued to pull the fishing rod diligently to pull the huge fish out of the lake. Finally, the fish once again surfaced from the water and revealed itself almost completely. The girls were dumbfounded and frightened at the same time at such a sight. But suddenly, they realized that the fish had a claw. This turn of events dumbfounded everyone even more. Rain realized that it was just a huge crab and was determined to catch it and be sure to bring it home. But Arya declared that she would not allow such a huge crab to be brought home. After a while, the boys went home in friendship. Arya continued to be sad because she had tried so hard but hadn't caught anything. Rain decided to cheer her up and told her that next time she would be lucky. Then, not missing the chance, the guy offered Arya to go fishing again. But an indignant Arya asked Rain to forget about catching that huge crab. But Rain did not like such an idea. He was sure that Arya herself was interested in catching such a critter. But Arya claimed that she was not at all interested and even scared, and Rain's behavior seemed like that of a child. Suddenly, the girls who were walking ahead suddenly froze. Arya asked them what was wrong, but she realized it herself when she looked ahead. In front of the entrance to the village was a carriage, and on the carriage was a coat of arms. Arya recognized this carriage. She realized that it was her aunt's carriage, but she didn't understand what she was even forgetting here. The girls then assumed that Alicia missed Arya so much that she decided to come herself. At that moment, out of nowhere, Alicia appeared and said hello to Arya. At this unexpected appearance, Arya even flinched. Without thinking long, Alicia pounced on Arya. Her aunt claimed that she immediately rushed to Arya when she heard that the village was in trouble. The indignant Arya, on the other hand, only asked her to stop hugging her. But Alicia was not going to let her niece go, since it had been so long since they had seen each other. The aunt wanted to hug Arya properly, and although Arya asked her to let her go, Alicia only asked the girl not to resist and to look at her face. But suddenly, Alicia noticed Rain looking at what was happening with a puzzled look and asked him what he was doing with her Arya. The next day, a bunch of royal knights and court wizards were wandering through the forest. Their captain was outraged that His Majesty had sent their elite squad into such a wilderness and thought that one low-grade sorcerer would be enough. The others asked the captain to calm down and deal with these wolves as soon as possible. But the captain claimed that was the problem. The captain said that who they hunted didn't matter at all, because they would get nothing out of it. As it turned out, the captain had heard that some anti-demon aristocrats used to do it. However, all he possessed was a basic magic called wind blades. The captain thought that if this kid could handle such weak magic, then it would be an easy job for them here, because he thought that they were much stronger than this kid. The squad, on the other hand, was supported by the captain and started praising the knights and wizards. At this point, the squad got into trouble. One frightened knight asked, hearing a strange sound, "What was that just now?" To which the captain only laughed and decided that the prey itself goes into their hands, so he offered the guys to see what kind of demon. After a while, the monster revealed itself. Seeing the giant bear, the knights and wizards were dumbfounded. They didn't understand where such a huge monster came from. But the captain told the squad not to retreat. He believed that it was just a pathetic demon. So the knights got serious and decided to show the monster their might. Without thinking long, the knights used a magic called wind blades. Then the blades flew straight at the bear. The knights, thinking that the danger was over, decided that this monster wasn't that strong. They didn't even understand why only the kid they had heard of was called an anti-demon aristocrat. But all of a sudden, the captain yelled. As it turned out, the monster had not yet been defeated. This interested the captain, and he realized that the squad would have to make a little more effort. But suddenly, he shouted for the entire squad to stand their ground. The captain wanted to deal with this demon himself, so he used a magic trick called the Great Storm of Blades. That's when the squad realized that the captain was getting serious. But they were sure that such an attack by their captain would leave the monster with no bones. But suddenly, the bear roared again, and, without thinking long, sat down the captain, who flashed right in front of his nose. The troop could not believe it. How could such a monster withstand top-class magic? Then all the knights rushed to save their captain. They used wind blades and magic storms. But it was all for nothing. The bear was still alive and unharmed. Finally, the wizards realized that their magic wasn't working at all. But they didn't understand how then the boy the captain was talking about was only able to cope with wind blades. At that moment, the situation worsened. 2 more bears came out of the forest and came at the roar of that. In the end, only the pitiful cry of the troop came from the forest. Back to the capital of the Sacred Kingdom. The action unfolds in the king's castle. The king angrily and unhappily pounded his fist on the table. As it turned out, his aides wanted to send reinforcements to the border, which he was quite indignant about. The king was sure that there was no need for reinforcements, for they had sent the court wizards there. But the head of the Order of Royal Wizards did not think so. He got caught up in explaining everything to His Majesty. The guy claimed that a month had already passed since the royal wizards were sent to the border. However, the forces of the demons had not weakened in the slightest. Guy claimed that they had already lost 40% of their troops, and if nothing is done, the army will be annihilated. The king was furious upon hearing such news. He thought that he was just being mocked and joked about. But those claimed that it was sadly true. The head of the order claimed that according to the king's stories, the anti-demon aristocrat was able to defeat an entire army of demons single-handedly. In addition, he only used a basic magic called wind blades. Then the king asked the guys if they doubted him. But the boys claimed that they in no way doubted His Majesty, and their mages had also used this spell. However, it had no effect. The head of the order argued that they needed to get the anti-demon nobleman back before it was too late. At this point, the king's subordinates intervened in the conversation. They asked the head of the order to shut his mouth, for he dare not challenge His Majesty's decision. The subordinates were outraged by the behavior of the head of the Order of Royal Wizards. They claimed that he would allow proud knights to rely on the boys' sorcery. But the head claimed that he would never dare to challenge His Majesty's decision. The simple fact of the matter was that if the army lost its borders, it could lead to real disaster. The chapter simply asked the king to make the right decision. Then the king said that at the moment, the main forces are focused on protecting the kingdom from invasion by neighboring countries. And if the head of the Order of Royal Wizards so desires, he himself should seek out this boy and direct him against the demons. At this moment, everyone in the chambers looked at each other. Finally, the king was told that the boy had left the kingdom. The king was furious to hear such a thing. He thought the boy was from the earl's house. But, suddenly, the king remembered that when the boy's engagement was cancelled, he was relegated to the commoners. Even the head of the order could not believe it. He tried to convey to the king that this boy should be found immediately. But suddenly, the king couldn't stand it any longer and, banging his glass on the table, ordered the head of the Order of Royal Wizards to shut up. The king then threw a wine glass at the one and declared that it was the army's fault that they were in such a sorry state. The king claimed that the army couldn't even handle the pitiful demons. In that case, he simply did not see the point of their existence. The king claimed that the head of the order would be in big trouble if he failed him once more. After this conversation, the head of the order left the king's chambers exhausted. He realized that with such a ruler their kingdom was finished. The girl, the assistant to the head, said that if he continued to quarrel with the king in this way, he might expel him. To which the head replied that he might better just leave the kingdom if that happened. Then the girl asked the guy why he tried so hard and added the position of the head of the royal wizards. To this the head answered nothing. Then the girl asked if the guy wanted to move to another country. To which the guy laughed and replied that he wasn't ready to give up yet. A short while after her arrival, Mrs. Alicia was already sitting in the mansion built by Rain with a dissatisfied face. Rain sat across from Alicia and felt this tension. The pressure was frantic. Then Alicia's personal butler decided to intervene. He asked Alicia to calm her pressure. This Alicia did. She changed the subject and said that she was very glad that Arya and her friends were safe. Also, Alicia apologized for not getting to the guys earlier. Alicia explained that she had ordered a man from the village to contact her in case of danger. However, it had been a very long time since there had been any communication, so Alicia began to worry. But, thanks to Kess's investigation, Alicia learned everything and arrived before the situation became incorrigible. That's when Alicia finally asked Arya what had happened in the village. And when Arya told Alicia everything, she was furious. She ordered Kess to find all those bastards who dared to escape from the village. Alicia claimed that she would personally deal with each one, and they would beg her for death. Kess, on the other hand, said that he had already started searching for the escapees. It was only a matter of time. And while Alicia considered the options of making the escapees dance on hot coals or putting them in an iron bowl, Rain looked at Arya and wondered if Alicia was serious about this. Within moments Alicia had a smile on her face. She was glad that she had already dealt with one problem and decided to move on. Alicia turned to Rain, who was already scared. He realized that he would definitely stay dead if he said the wrong thing. But the first thing Alicia asked Rain was what was his name. Rain gave his name and added that he was honored to meet the one. But Alicia asked Rain to omit the formal greeting. She claimed that the one was currently the only male in the village, so she needed to investigate him thoroughly. Alicia argued that she could not allow some suspicious person to stay in the village. Rain was very scared at this time. He realized that if Alicia didn't like something, there was no way he could get away with it. Then the boy began his story. He began by saying that he was a monster hunter in his country. Then, suddenly, Milia and Arya gagged the guy and said that he had only recently started living with them. After which, the girls flashed Rain out the door. While in the hallway, Arya asked Rain if he wanted to tell the truth. Without waiting for an answer, Arya only asked him to remember that in this country, the interpretation of magic is limited. Milia added that Rain had come from another country to teach them magic, and if they found out about it, the boy might be in trouble. Milia realized that hiding the truth would be difficult. Arya, on the other hand, also thought that deceiving her aunt was bad, but she was willing to do it for Rain's safety. The girls then decided to come up with a perfect past for Rain. Milia said that she and the girls would keep it a secret too, and then started dictating to the boy his new story. Rain didn't even have time to memorize all the details. After a while Alicia was already listening to Rain again. Rain, who was sweaty and shaking, claimed that he used to be an adventurer and had made a living at it. One day he was traveling and came across this village. Stammering, the guy said he couldn't pass by and stayed to help. Such a story Alicia found suspicious. Rain realized it himself. He knew that no one in his life would believe that he just happened to be in this place. That's when Arya stepped in to save the situation. She stepped up to Alicia and asked her, referring to her as her aunt, if she believed her. To which Alicia replied that she would believe Arya if she called her auntie again. That's when Rain realized that he was saved. Then Alicia asked another question. Did he build this house and the walls? To which Rain replied that he had created them with his magic. Based on Rain's words, Alicia realized that such magic also existed. Then Arya intervened again. She told Alicia that they were really glad that Rain stayed in the village, and about the registration, they decided to wait until spring. Alicia listened to Arya and decided not to put it in the report in that case. At this point, Kes stumped that the conversation was coming to an end and asked Alicia for permission to start unloading supplies. Alicia allowed Kes to unload the supplies, but added that it was not a gift at all. She argued that Arya should know the basics of economics since he was the village headman. So Alicia asked her what she could offer in return for the supplies she received. Tut-Titi Milia realized that they were saved. But Arya admitted that they had nothing at all. Milia added that after the recent monster attack, they had lost almost everything. The girls then began to whisper and discuss what they could give Alicia in return for supplies. Rain suggested giving the magic stones that they had collected from the demons, and Arya supported this idea. Milia, on the other hand, added that they could also offer some vegetables. To which Kes replied that vegetables were quite a valuable resource, as winter was near and the new harvest was still a long way off. After a while, the table was full of resources that the boys were willing to exchange for Alicia's supplies. Milia even apologized to Alicia and explained that this was all they could offer her for now. Alicia had not seen such quality stones for a long time, so she wondered if the boys had mined the stones themselves. But suddenly, Alicia saw something even more valuable. It was the potion that Rain was preparing. After a while, Alicia decided that she wanted to buy all of the boys' supplies. Milia was surprised by this and asked her if she was sure. To which Alicia replied that she was sure because those showed her very good supplies. Rain helped Kes to pack everything and take it to the carriage. The girls were still talking to Alicia. They could not believe that such small supplies could pay for all of Alicia's help. But Alicia argued that if Arya showed her all her love for her aunt, it would be enough. A confused Arya, on the other hand, indignantly asked Alicia what she was carrying. Then the girl turned to Milia to support her, but Milia only showed her a heart. That's when Arya realized. Milia is a traitor. Arya realized that she had no choice, and she turned to her aunt and said that she would be very happy if she bought all the supplies from her. Such a request pleased Alicia too much. It was then that shouts of joy were heard throughout the house. Milia then began to cheer up Arya, and the latter claimed that she would never forgive her. At this time Alicia approached Rain. Rain approached that one and began to listen to her. Alicia, on the other hand, admitted that the guy's story made her suspicious, but she argued that if he was willing to help this village, she would be grateful if he lived here. Also, Alicia added that she had one small request for Rain. "You haven't done anything dirty here, have you?" Without a bit of shyness, Alicia asked the guy. Such a question made Rain feel scared for some reason. Arya intervened in this conversation and asked her aunt not to talk nonsense. The girl tried to convey to Alicia that Rain was a very good man. That's when Alicia realized that the guys were already good friends. So she decided not to ask anyone about Rain's present and past. That's when everyone realized one thing. Alicia had figured it out. Alicia claimed that she was glad to be able to visit the village anyway. She asked the boys to leave the rest of the formalities to her. Alicia said that she was leaving the welfare of this village to Riene, for which Arya thanked her very much. But, suddenly, Alicia declared that the conversation on behalf of Countess Floria was over. This statement put the three in a stupor. Alicia, on the other hand, declared with hatred in her eyes that she would now speak as Arya's aunt. Alicia claimed that she didn't believe that Rain had nothing with her niece. After all, every man is a predator just waiting to pounce on a beautiful woman. So they live under the same roof. At this point, Alicia also realized that before Rain built this house, they were also sleeping together. The girl claimed that she had never been able to sleep together with Arichka. Alicia even admitted that she was just jealous of the guy. She decided that she would not give Arya to Rain, and he would have to win her back from her. In the end, Alicia loudly challenged Rain to a duel. So, after a while, Alicia and Rain were already outside and preparing for the duel. Alicia claimed that she wouldn't kill Rain even though it was a duel. But she made a condition to take Arya if she won. The other girls stood nearby and watched what was happening. They didn't know at all what had happened. Rain, on the other hand, replied to Alicia that he couldn't decide such a thing for Arya since they didn't have that kind of relationship. Such words made Alicia even more angry. She felt that he thought her niece was unworthy. But Rain shouted in horror that she wasn't. In that case, Alicia asked Rain to tell her why Arya is cute. He has 500 words for that. Rain, however, did not understand what Alicia wanted from him. Alicia then opined that Rain was just giving up. She claimed that she wouldn't even have 3,000 words to do it. After that, Alicia called out to Arya and asked her to come over. Arya approached Alicia and asked her what she wanted. Alicia apologized and asked Arya if she could lend her sword. Arya didn't understand why Alicia was asking this of her. After all, there is her butler. Alicia laughed and admitted that she didn't expect something like this to happen, so they didn't prepare at all. Besides, her blade was not something Alicia was willing to use here. At this moment, Rain realized, even though he had noticed it long ago, that there was simply frantic magic emanating from the Countess's sword. Finally, Alicia was given the sword and waving it. The girl declared that the rules were simple. The loser is the one who surrenders or is unable to continue the fight. Also, Alicia added that body strengthening could also be used. Rain understood everything and set up for the duel. At that moment, the guy was called out by Arya and Milia. Then Rain approached them, and the girls apologized for Alicia dragging him into her games. Arya claimed that when it comes to her, Alicia always oversteps her bounds. But Rain asked Arya not to worry. He claimed that he himself was wondering how strong the Countess was. Besides, Rain knew that he just had to win and believed that he wouldn't lose. And while Alicia was admiring Arya's sword, the girls on the sidelines were trying to convey everything in detail to Rain. They knew that Rain was certainly strong, but claimed that if a girl used all her strength, she could have the entire village in the blink of an eye. Therefore, Arya asked the guy to be extremely careful, because they didn't want the whole village to be destroyed at all. That's when Rain realized that they had a problem. He confessed that he didn't know how to hold back at all. One day, while practicing, Rain almost sent his parents into the world. That's when Arya realized things were bad. So she called Keys and told him she had something to tell him. At this time, Alicia was already burning with anticipation. She claimed that Rain couldn't escape because Arya belonged to her. At that moment, Cass called out to the girl. Alicia nervously turned around and asked what he wanted, and could he see that she was not in the mood right now. Cass, on the other hand, only asked to leave this duel to him. Alicia was interested in such a suggestion and asked why Cass wanted to do so. To which Cass replied that she herself was well aware that Rihanna could not defeat her. Therefore, Cass asked that Alicia be allowed to be replaced for the safety of Rain. Cass argued that outside observation should be enough if Alicia wanted to see what Rain was capable of. Finally, Cass managed to convince Alicia, for which he thanked her of course. Also, Cass added that he was a bit worried, since Rain had been living with Arya and her friends for a long time. And if Alicia started bullying Rain, what would Arya think about it? Alicia even imagined this situation in her head as Arya says she hates her. After all the manipulations, Cass asked Alicia again if she still wanted to fight Rain. To which she depressively replied that she definitely couldn't stand such a thing. Arya realized that Cass had succeeded in persuading Alicia not to fight Rain, for which she thanked him. After a while, the sword was already in Cass's hands. Arya at this time supported Rain as best she could and said that it would not be difficult to try. But Rain, holding a knife in his hands, claimed that he was not used to using weapons at all, so it would not be easy for him. Finally, Alicia announced the start of the duel, and within a second, Cass simply disappeared, to which Rain was a little surprised. But a moment later, Cass was already behind Rain's back. He swung and almost struck at Rain, but he managed to dodge. That's when Rain realized that Cass was very fast. Cass was also surprised. He wanted to end it all with one punch and didn't even expect Rain to be able to dodge. But he wasn't going to give up just like that, so he swung his sword at the guy again. But Rain dodged again. For a few more minutes, Cass continued to attack Rain, but he just dodged. At some point Rain assumed, based on how fast Cass was, that he seemed to specialize in enhancing body speed. Rain realized that keeping up with Cass would be quite a problem. Finally, the guy decided to attack. The first thing he did was to use a magic called Wind Blades. Cass was surprised that Rain was holding 8 spells at once, knowing magic wasn't forbidden. He immediately realized that Rain was an amazing person and would have to try harder with him. Cass then decided to see what Rain could do and attacked him again. He threw knives at the guy's feet and then shouted, "Explosion!" The explosion happened. At first, Rain couldn't even see through it. Lin and Sui at this time were yawning and wiping their eyes like nothing. Rain, on the other hand, realized that Cass had tried magic on the thrown object and decided that Cass wanted to attack him from the smoke. But it only costs Cass to give himself away, and Rain immediately attacks him with wind blades. Then the guy decided to create pillars as well. He created them using earth control. Rain realized that by creating obstacles, one could use magic to thicken the air and cause suffocation. And if Rain was fighting a demon, that's what he would do. But the guy didn't want to use such magic against a human. Cass was puzzled that Rain had created so many pillars in an instant. He realized that not getting closer was the right decision. Cass could already realize that Rain was an experienced person just by seeing his magic. Cass just didn't know that such a person lived in their country. He even realized that Rain was a head stronger than him. But still, Cass thought that no matter how big the difference in strength was, because there was always a chance to win. He once again decided to disappear from Rain's sight. Rain realized that if he was serious, Cass just might die. Then the guy should be more careful and not break his weapon yet. Still, Rain realized that there was no other way out. In advance, he mentally apologized to Arya. At this moment, Cass appeared from above. He was sure that Rain had completely forgotten about the possibility of attacking from above, so he thought that he would win. But when Cass was about to strike, Rain stopped his sword with his knife. Cass was dumbfounded. At that moment his sword trembled, and in a moment a crack appeared on it. The sword still could not stand and broke. Cass was terrified and understood nothing. Rain, realizing that Arya's sword was broken, was a little distressed. After a while, Alicia was already reprimanding Cass for losing. She stuck his head in the ground and asked him what he had to say for himself. To which Kes only apologized and explained that he had simply underestimated his opponent. Alicia turned to Rain and admitted that she was convinced that Rain was definitely an amazing person. Therefore, Alicia recognized his victory. However, the girl added that it didn't mean that she allowed the guy to molest Arya. Rain, on the other hand, smiled and didn't even realize what she was talking about. He didn't even have such intentions in his mind. Alicia finally grabbed Kes by the leg and started dragging him to the carriage with the words that she would be back, and until then, the safety of the village lies with Rain. As Kes and the Countess were on their way home, Kes told her that the power of the Rhine was comparable to the strongest storm. But Alicia remained silent. Then Kes asked her if she was in a good mood and if nothing had happened, to which Alicia replied that she was just happy to see Arya. Besides, she was interested in one subject. She held out the vial to Kes and asked him to take a look. Kes didn't know what it was, so he asked Alicia. Alicia explained that it was a liquid of medicinal herbs that had been extracted by a top-rank spell. With the help of it, the guys were able to grow such good vegetables. But one such vial would also be enough to buy a house in the royal capital. Alicia claimed that when she saw the vial among the supplies, she could not believe her eyes. In addition, when she asked where the boys had gotten it, they said they had gotten it themselves. Alicia was just sure that such supplies had been obtained by Rain. Kes, on the other hand, said that he had already realized that Rain was an unusual man, and as Alicia herself knows, repairing equipment requires special materials imbued with magical energy, and the country that has more of these materials will win the war. Then Alicia clutched her head and said with a smile on her face that she should have guessed it herself. The girl only now realized that Rain was too strong for their lands, so she was sure that the guy came from a neighboring country. Although Alicia didn't know the reason why he decided to come to them, however, if he was in the village, she might not worry about their safety. Alicia understood that Kes didn't like Rain, but she argued that letting such a powerful mage go was simply foolish. To this Kes agreed. Kes then decided to finalize the registration of the new settler as soon as possible. But Alicia asked him to take his time, because this village was extremely difficult to find anyway. Also, if such a thing happened, Kes would have to see to it that the information didn't go anywhere. Alicia marveled that potions in her territory would be their greatest trump card if they could produce them. And if that really happened, the girl was determined to rub the cheeky second prince's nose in it.